Hello, everyone. We are live with a new session of Court of Blades Valloward, our critically acclaimed actual play series, a official selection at the New Jersey Webfest and the Minnesota Webfest. I will be your dancing master, Michael R. Underwood, but for now, I'm going to throw to our channel host, Greg, to welcome everyone and tell us a little bit about your channel, twitch.tv/Arvan
So welcome, everybody. It is good to see you all. Yes, the New Jersey Webfest officially selected. I don't know that we mentioned that yet within the last 5 minutes. I just want to mention it again. The selected Valloward Court of Blades. But it's good to see everybody. As you can see, I have moved. I now live in a hotel. That's not true. I am here for ReaderCon in Boston. I just got out of a panel on the heist narrative with a bunch of really cool authors, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of people there in attendance with some great questions. And so we are here for Court of Blades. This is my channel, which focuses on story and narrative in games under the moniker Arvan Elleron. That's me, but I am also Gregory A. Wilson, an author, and I am very excited because I have the thing that's over here that I didn't forget to bring out before at all because I was totally here the whole time and ready for it. And that's this, which is Renegade, which is the sequel to my book, Gray Shade. This comes out in 2 weeks, people. In fact, less than 2 weeks. And Saturday, 2 weeks from tomorrow, will be the release event at BlackRock Books, where I'll be doing reading from this in person. Super, super excited for Renegade. And I'm very happy to talk about that and to have the amazing folks here for the Court of Blades crew and Speculate. And I guess Brandon is next, he said, maybe? I don't remember.
Yes, we usually plan who's going to go next beforehand, but we didn't, so just take it then. Hello everyone, it is I, Brandon O'Brien. I am a poet, writer, and game designer from Trinidad and Tobago, and one of the co-hosts of Speculate alongside Greg and Mike. It's funny how Greg just showed you a copy of Renegade, because I'm also doing a thing in the Grey Assassin universe with the wonderful Gregory A. Wilson. I am designing the RPG tie-in for the Grey Assassin trilogy. So if you have read Grey Shade and really enjoyed it and are very eager to get your hands on Renegade, I should also humor you and interest you in the wonderful Grey Shade RPG, where you get the opportunity to play acolytes and investigators and informants and all cool things while you discover all of the rotten things that take place in Corel and environs.
And if you're going to, by the way, if you're going to be at Gen Con, by the way, in a few weeks, the Writers Symposium, where Brandon and I will both be, if you're going to be there, you will be able to get a copy of a pamphlet, which is basically like an early look at the Grey Shade TTRPG on cardstock and the whole bit. And you'll be able to get it from the Studio 2 booth, which is the distributor for Alligator Alley, or you'll be able to get it from a lot of people, including myself and, of course, Brandon. Sorry, Brandon, just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, so definitely, if you are coming to Gen Con, definitely check that out. And if you're not coming to Gen Con, come to Gen Con.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's me.
I'm Rhiannon Held, professional archaeologist and author. I write fantasy as Rhiannon Held and space opera as RZ Held. And I play Gensia the Knack.
Okay. Darcie, you're up.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Darcie Little Badger, and I'm so happy to be back again for another game. Since we last spoke, my 3rd book was announced, so I am an author of fantasy novels, and my next one, Lende, is the prequel to Alatsue. And today I am playing a Marcello.
Okay. And again, I am Michael R. Underwood, Mike everywhere except my byline, and that's just how things ended up. It turns out that there's a very prolific crime writer by the name of Michael Underwood who is mostly active in the 70s. And so if I wanted any chance of SEO success, I needed to add that R. So
I know that feels so well.
Yes. So that's the origin of my pen name. I'm going to be the GM, aka Dancing Master, of our game of Court of Blades, which is a role-playing game by a couple of Drakes, Sean and Navi Drake. The Drakes have been lovely to work with. They provided the kind of basic overlay that you see here, and they also gave us the video that we normally play at the front of sessions. I had to do production today, and I've had a very full day, so you didn't get to see that video. Imagine it in your mind. Imagine the silky smooth voice of Sean Drake telling you about Valloward, the greatest city in this or any other age. But fortunately, we are going to do some recap at the beginning of the session because we didn't get to do the normal, like, end of job payoff stuff, and we didn't get to do XP. And so I think we're going to do payoff and exposure and those things, and that's going to serve as part of our recap so that we can then do XP, and we'll then flow that into our downtime. Downtime in Court of Blades is when the retainers kind of attend to personal matters, when they pursue additional projects outside of an individual errand, when they commiserate with one another, and when they deal with the ramifications and kind of entanglements that arise as a result of their activities. Like, I don't know, perhaps infuriating a socialite heir of the currently most powerful house in Valloward through a series of events that included chopping off the dominant hand of said noble's bodyguard. Just hypothetically, if that had happened recently.
I mean, why would that happen? Like, you know.
So I am going to I'm going to take us over to the part in the book where we do payoff. So the first thing that you're going to get is influence. We're going to figure out how much the house and the city views what you've done as being noteworthy, such that you should be rewarded. And I'm going to pull up our house sheet here and put it over this way. You should see here that we have 4 influence. So you're going to get more influence for this errand, and that means that you're probably going to need to move some influence from the coterie sheet onto the individual character sheets. Now, this influence is the same influence that you convert into basically your retirement account. You bank favors and approval, and in a normal campaign of Court of Blades, when the campaign ends, everybody looks at their accumulated status, and that determines kind of their relative place within the household when the story ends. Like, oh, okay, are they cut loose? Are they, kind of honored as a low to medium level retainer? Or at the highest levels, are they, kind of married into or bought into the house to a certain degree, right? How good or bad is your retirement? But first, we do influence for this errand, and the errand, as a reminder, or for anybody who wasn't present, you were asked to go on the Sunset Line, which is one of the magically maglev train lines in Valloward, which are a kind of a crowning achievement of the magic workers and infrastructure of this city, which is otherwise largely kind of European Renaissance technology levels in what we see. But then, of course, we also have some styles of magic. And there was rumors of a ghost haunting this Sunset Line late into the evening. And so the coterie, in disguise, boarded the Sunset Line and kind of investigated and waited to see what all would come from this. And in the process, made the acquaintance of Javeli Greymist, a kind of very socially imposing scion and socialite of the Greymist house, and her retinue, a lady's maid and a bodyguard. And over the course of the evening, that ghost appeared. The people on the train were terrified, and the bodyguard of Greymist was revealed to be not so much a bodyguard as just like a straight up killer, and attempted to remove the coterie as witnesses to what had happened previously using a fairly terrifying Savenai magical artifact known as an Oblivion Blade, where if you are killed by an Oblivion Blade, your entire physical form disintegrates. And in the course of these activities, the bodyguard with this Oblivion Blade attempted to do some terrible damage to members of the coterie, doing things like, oh, well, if you get stabbed, you're going to lose your entire connection to magic. Or if you, Zelfa, get stabbed, you're going to forget everything. You're going to forget all these things about your connection to the Dialta people. Because this is a Forged in the Dark game, I can throw out nasty harm, and the characters are able to resist that. So those terrible things did not happen, and they were able to contain the situation. Having succeeded in the errand, they're going to earn some influence. 4 influence is appropriate for covering a significant social gaffe or exposing a rival's shame. 6 influence for a ruinous secret, found or hidden. Or 8 influence, you might get that for discreet disposal of a body, escorting an heir of the house for a weekend's carousing. And 10 influence, interception of an assassin's poison, admission of high treason in lieu of shaming the house. So from 4 to 10, how much influence do we think we get with the house for solving this, or for at least addressing the question of the ghost in the course of this evening? This seems somewhat... Go ahead.
Well, it seems stronger than a social gaffe for a 4 and more like a secret for a 6. But what I'm wondering is, did we do enough so that Grey Mist can't just deny it? Because it's not worth anything to us as a house if Grey Mist can be like, well, you don't have any proof.
That's a very good question. I think the task that you were set was to deal with the ghost. And I feel like you've done that. But then the question of Grey Mist's counterstroke is still a big question mark. But I wouldn't ask you to keep that Grey Mist response in mind in a way that reduces the amount of influence that you get. We'll get to that.
Don't you just love it when a GM says those words?
Yeah, we'll get to that. Notice the counterstroke, which has not yet fallen. Great. So the only thing I would say is that if we're basing this just on degree of difficulty, that session was no joke. And like, if we're basing it on that to me feels like, I don't know if you can subdivide it this way, like a 7 or an 8, but in term, and I feel like in terms, if we think of influence, and you can tell me if this is right, as the impact that it has on the city, this to me is a pretty substantial, like, people be like, whoa, did you hear what happened at blah, blah, blah? Not just because of the ghost, but because all of a sudden, like, Vorster has decided to, has gotten ready to rumble with Grey Mist without meaning to. So I think I would suggest it be on the higher end towards the 7 or 8 rather than the 4 or 5. It would be my thought.
I am inclined to agree. If we had come across the ghost by itself and still came to the same conclusion, it would have counted as a 6 for me. The fact that we still confronted the person responsible in so learning that fact strikes me as an 8.
Okay. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that. So does influence take into consideration basically the amount of people who are influenced by the act? Because there were a lot of witnesses there.
Yeah, a fair number of the witnesses had run to the adjacent train, but right. I think there still will be some witnesses, people who were close enough that they're going to poke their noses in, and who will see, theoretically, you carting off Oliveri, the Grey Mist bodyguard that you clashed with.
And I imagine that class of folks, like, going to a fancy party, and they're probably well connected with the upper echelons of society. Yeah, I'd say that influenced it. But yeah, what everyone said, I agree.
Okay. So if it's 7 influence, the influence track for the coterie is currently full, which means that everyone, each of you should take at least 1 influence, and then 3 out of 4 of you should take a second influence on your individual sheet.
Okay.
It stands to reason that one of those 3 should be Crevice.
Yeah.
I mean, someone had to take
Why? Because
the
I got because I got disarmed when the guy looked at me, like just like, I was very early stage Inigo. You know what I mean? I wasn't late stage Inigo. Late stage Inigo Montoya is on the way.
You have to work your way up to those things, yes.
No, that's true. But thank you. That's fine. I'm happy to take one. I think Gensia's got to get at one of those extra ones because it was Gensia's work that allowed us to have contact with the ghost in the first place. So definitely Gensia.
Okay.
I mean, Zelfa was at risk of pretty serious harm, so
True.
that.
Yeah, I would say, Gensia, like, you got close to, I mean, like, if you, like, touched that ghost or been some way pulled into it, I would say that's also pretty dangerous. Yeah, it's like your 3 characters each almost lost something quite substantial in terms of your life. Yeah, another vote for Gensia.
Okay. So that sounds like it's 2 influence each for Karevis, Zelfa, and Gensia, and 1 influence for Marcelo for now from that 7.
What do I do when my thing is full?
If you max your personal influence of 4, you will not be able to gain any more and are encouraged to think about what you can spend that influence on. The easiest thing to spend influence on is additional downtime actions, or you can take influence and put it into status, which is like investing in your retirement nest egg. But the retirement nest egg is more about how you are regarded by the house and the city, and less about like, I am depositing one influence of money into the bank.
Is it 1 influence per extra action, Mike? Or
Yes.
And then one influence per status?
Yes.
Or okay.
If you need to basically if you need to cash out your retirement status for immediate influence, you have to pay 2 status to get 1 influence.
Okay.
So it's 1-to-1 going in, but it's 2-to-1 the bad way if you need to cash out. Like if you try to cash out your retirement 401k in the U.S.
Okay. So we'll deal with that during downtime. I mean, in a minute when we get to the mechanical downtime stuff, we can decide how we spend the influence. Because I have 3 to 4. I'll probably spend 2 this downtime, I think.
Okay. So with that said, the next thing to do is to consider your exposure. I regret to inform you that it looks like your exposure track was already very full.
It was. We're kind of in dire straits very early.
It's a good thing it was the now obliterated gang, the Eels, that is known to be responsible for what just happened, and not House Vorster in any way. I'm sure that's...
0
what's up, Purifier?
0 exposure. Only your house is even aware you were dispatched. That doesn't seem to be accurate. 2 is contained, discreet, and sensible, standard exposure. 4 is loud and chaotic, high exposure. And 6 is wild and devastating exposure.
I'd go loud and chaotic, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not devastating.
Yeah.
They escaped to the other train car.
Yeah, they weren't that devastated.
So the bad news is that even 1 exposure would have been enough to fill your track, because there were a number of things going on last downtime, and attention was not paid to reducing your exposure, which means that we're going to fill the track, and then I'm going to put 1 in the equivalent of wanted from Blades in the Dark, and then the rest is going to spill over. So if that is 4, then we fill the track, and then it becomes 3 of the new one, and you will gain 1 in shame.
Oh no.
So
Shame.
I'm going to
Shame doesn't sound good at all.
Yeah.
So level 1 shame says that the coterie will lose 1 downtime action, as in 1 PC must spend a downtime action explaining or apologizing on behalf of the coterie after every errand. So every downtime...
Every downtime?
Your group will lose 1 downtime total. Not 1 per person,
Right,
but 1 downtime. So there are ways to reduce shame. You can reduce shame by making amends with houses minor, rival houses, or the city at large. To make amends, you must spend an errand appeasing the appropriate faction. I would also allow an intrigue to reduce shame.
Okay.
So
I do like me some intrigues.
You're currently working on one, yes, indeed. In addition, when you get influence, sometimes you get a favor. So I'm going to pull up our faction relationships. And the Valloward Rail Association is a member of the Houses Minor. I think in doing this, you are going to improve your standing with the Valloward Rail Association. So they're going to go from -2, where they will go out of their way to make problems for you, to -1, where they will make problems for you if it isn't inconvenient for them, because they're still sore about your patronage of the engineer from the party where the eels attacked. So you improve your status there, and I think you will gain 1 favor with the Houses Minor, and what this represents is you gaining favor kind of with the populace writ large, because you went to and made more safe a major public accommodation. Even if the Sunset Line is kind of bougie, it's still part of this infrastructural element that is really important, not just to the nobility, but to everybody in Valloward, to workers and merchants and anybody else who might use the train lines, which is a lot of people. So that is very nice. We've done influence, favor, and exposure. So the last thing to do is to figure out what the entanglement for this activity is. And the entanglement will be rolled as if your exposure is as maximum.
Nope.
So it'll be on the more severe entanglements chart.
Okay. Is it just a fortune roll?
It is a fortune roll. I think entanglements work slightly different in this game versus Blades, so I'm not just going to kind of assume. I'm going to try to remind myself how it actually works. This is the downtime of running several different Forge in the Dark games simultaneously, and then having the rules to several other Forge in the Dark games in your brain, like the Genrenauts game that I'm working on. So I will give you a choice. Would you rather roll on the worst table in shame level 0 or the least worst table on shame level 1? I think rules as written, I should roll us on the least worst table in shame 1.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like how it's supposed to operate.
Yeah,
Rules as written.
fine.
Yep.
And I think that it's only fair that we suffer the consequences that we signed up for.
Yes. So I think shame level 1. So what we're going to do is if someone can roll me just 1d6, you want low here, theoretically.
I will give you a 1d6 fortune if you like.
Yep. And we shall see what the chart says. So that is a 6. A 6 on...
6s on these tables tend to be bad.
For shame
Your
level
entire
1,
house
0,
is
3...
vanished from...
Well, this is unhelpful rumor, and listen to this and see if it doesn't sound accurate. Word spreads that your coterie is plotting against a rival house. If true, they know you are coming. You may not start the errand in a controlled position. If you move against another house, you may not start in a desperate position.
Okay, cool. So it just stands to reason that that's Grey Mist, right?
Right.
I mean, presumably.
Now, theoretically, the next errand is the Hibiscus tournament, but Grey Mist is certainly going to be there, and as the first house, they are the favorites, or their Bravo is the favorite for that competition. So I'm just going to make a quick note of that in my noggin.
His note is Carevius auto loses.
No,
I'm very sorry.
There'll be plenty of fun for the Hibiscus tournament. And
I was playing Talisman the other day, and I encountered in the city, or one of the people playing encountered in the city a Bravo and defeated him, and I was like, great, this is an image of what awaits me, and now my prophecy has come true.
No, I don't think we'll have. There'll be plenty of times for you to get to do cool Bravo stuff in the tournament. I think it'll be a great time. So with that all said, the next thing to do is XP for this previous session, because we've gone through all these things, and then after XP we will do our downtime actions for the characters.
Okay.
So the first, we'll do XP for the coterie sheet first. This is basically XP that is earned by your actions overall as a group. You are currently 2 spots from filling the coterie XP track, so there's a good chance that you will get an advance this time. So for each of these, if the answer is yes, you will mark 1 XP, and if we fill the track, then we empty it and start over, like these other tracks. Did you overcome an obstacle with honor or tradition?
How traditional was it? I mean, obviously we overcame the obstacle, but
yeah, who's
Good
tradition?
question. I would default to the house's tradition.
Well, I mean, we were trying to expose a secretive and fundamentally dangerous thing, which is what we did when we dealt with the Revenant. Same kind of thing. Like, we were trying to unmask. Vorster's basic thing is to be like, look at this crappy thing, and Valloward's like, what? Oh, sorry, yeah, good call. That's our job, is to basically reveal the stuff under the dirt that nobody else sees. So I do feel like we did that. I mean, I feel like we revealed that. We didn't cheat. It's just we did disguise ourselves, and Zelfa may or may not have lied to get us close. But listen, what matters here is, in the end, we revealed the secret. So I think there's something to be said for maybe overcoming. I mean, we definitely overcame an obstacle, and I feel like we didn't do it disingenuously from the house's point of view. So
Yeah. What counts as honor or tradition is really up to the players, because this is you setting a stake in the ground saying, this is the standard we're trying to live up to. There are also 4 other prompts, so you're not at risk of falling short of getting an advance if the answer to this one is no.
But that's a good question. Do the rest of you think of Vorster? Because I think of Vorster kind of that way, of like digging up problems and revealing them to the light of the sun type of thing. Is that, because we don't do that kind of subterfuge nonsense, basically. So I don't know if that's how you folks feel, but it's...
I think I agree. I also think that it is like the way that interaction took place is in a sense fundamentally honorable. We could have gone, oh, we know that this happened. How do we gain power from it, or how do we like turn this information into the upper hand for us? And instead we went, no, this is wrong. Maybe we just need to deal with the thing.
That's true. We need to stop this, which was, then we were way over our heads, but anyway.
So yeah.
Okay. So that's one. The next question, did you contend with challenges above your current station? Yes.
Yes.
A little bit.
The guy had a knife that deletes you.
The
Accurate.
dude disarmed me by looking at me.
So, yes. That will fill the track. And then there's 3 more questions. Did you bolster your coterie's reputation or develop a new one? Your current reputation is daring.
Again, we did get in a fight with a major house, the highest serving bodyguard of which had a knife that was essentially nuclear. So,
Bodyguard.
yeah.
Yeah, right. Bodyguard, exactly.
And then this one is pretty wide open. You express the goals, drives, inner conflict, or essential nature of the coterie. So what you did really strongly reflects like something that the coterie is about, or some internal tension in the coterie.
I will argue, and this is weirdly one of those things that the coterie is just kind of accidentally discovered it is equipped to deal with, which is this is the second time that we have had to deal with discovering that something necromantic has taken place as a result of magic that is not the altar. And reckoning with the fact that that is bad. Like, everyone other than me is now convinced that that is actually bad, right? That we should stop doing those things.
I mean, yeah, because look at what happens. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Self is just like pointing at people and going, "Stop interfering with death."
Yeah, and we're like, let's not have extra death. Like, let's not have early death. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to double dip from what we did in the first one, but again, I think that one of the fundamental goals of the coterie is to, I mean, honestly, I think part of what Vorster is doing in this dance of houses is kind of unmasking the system and talking about how the system itself is deeply problematic in a way because of what it does. And part of the way you do that is by revealing these secrets that these other houses are trying to keep buried. So it may not make us the most popular person at the party, but we're the most right person at the party, right? So like,
and then the last prompt is, did we protect Valloward or her interests?
Oh yes, freaking stop the nuclear sword. Like, I mean,
that one seems
getting rid of an
by.
Oblivion Blade sounds like a thing that you do because you care about other people.
Yeah, Prince Justin points out no double dip of death, and that's very important.
Okay, so you will get a coterie advancement, and I have marked the other XP, but first we should do the other character XP. So why don't we start? Darcie, do you want to start so that we can figure out any microphone stuff that we may need to?
Yeah, I'm like,
Okay.
wait, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, yeah. My microphone was just like...
Okay. Cool. Well, that one certainly worked. So for XP, what we'll do is go ahead and open up your sheet, and then in the top right-hand corner, so you may need to expand the window to the right so you can see the actions. The character XP track is there at the top right. And so I can ask the questions. As the player, you are the one who gets to decide whether the answer is yes or no. And so a little bit of this is kind of setting your difficulty level. Like, do I need to X, Y, or Z harder to feel like I earned the XP? So this is, very much a judgment call, super subjective. Play it how you like.
Okay.
And for each of these, an answer of yes will get you 1 XP.
Okay, sounds good. And can you hear me okay? I had to switch over to basically the batteries ran out on my other mic. So now I'm with my webcam mic.
Yeah,
Does it sound right?
It's not as great, but I think it'll work. If you're able to turn down your gain a tiny bit, that's great. Otherwise, we can make it work.
Sure. Or I could grab my backup mic. Do you think it's worth it for the sound quality?
Eventually, yeah. But if
right.
so I guess
I'll do it after this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do XP, and then if you want to duck out and set that up, I think it'll be fine.
Thank you.
Did you address a challenge with stealth in that previous mission?
Well, I tried up until the end when I straight up attacked the guy.
Yeah, and so these are address a challenge. You don't have to have succeeded.
All right, I did indeed. That's 1 XP for me.
Okay. Did you address a challenge with perception? like trying to kind of read what was going on or assess the situation so that you could challenge. Yeah.
Yes, Marcelo kind of had his eye on that bodyguard who was acting a bit weird, so I'll give a point for that.
Sure thing. Next is you expressed your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background. So in what way did you kind of like spotlight or characterize Marcelo in that session?
We did a lot of schmoozing and throwing of wine bottles. I think that's his background as being a socialite.
Sure, yeah.
All right.
Great. And did you struggle with issues from your indulgences or scandals? So your indulgence is luxury and you don't have any scandals. So did you struggle with the draw or hold of luxury in any way?
Unfortunately, not this time. There wasn't much luxurious on the train.
Sure. And so that is 3 XP.
Okay.
Those you can put into that track at the top right, or you can move them down and divide them up in any way. So you could do 1 in character XP and then put the others in those diamond tracks for body, mind, and spirit. When you fill the top one, you gain a special ability, which is the abilities in the column with the title, the Eye. If you fill one of the attribute tracks, you get to add 1 point to one of those actions.
Oh, cool. All right.
So while we do XP for other folks, if you want to grab that mic and then maybe take a look at your sheet and figure out if there's an area that you would like to advance.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much.
Okay, so that is Marcelo. From there, let's go to Jensia, if that's okay, Rhiannon.
Yeah. So you addressed a challenge with arcane knowledge, I think yes. I addressed a challenge with arcane power, I think also yes. And I'll skip ahead. I don't think I had indulgences or scandals. So the one I was thinking about is that third one, the beliefs, drives, heritage, or background. And I think that is a yes. And the reason is the stuff with Javeli, where she was making fun of Jensia's, well, not making fun of it, but talking about Jensia's clothing and her style and sort of like all that is very sort of part of her character. She's so focused on magic. So
I think that makes a lot of sense. So that looks like it is 3 XP that you can assign wherever you like. Between the
body, I think.
Okay.
I need more of that.
Being able to stand up to, I don't know, like a magically deleting sword, just hypothetically. Okay, so that is that for Jensia, cut and dry. We'll go to Zelfa next. So, Zelfa, did you address a challenge with expertise?
I don't think I had anything that counts as expertise in that situation in the first place. Not more so than Jensia would have, at least. So I think I'll forego that point of XP.
Okay. Did you address a challenge with calculation?
That I think I did. A lot of those interactions with Javeli were definitely very calculating.
Indeed. Let's talk about beliefs, drives, heritage, or background from that session for Zelfa.
I do think my Delta heritage and my very strong feelings about the dead did come to bear in that interaction.
Sure.
In some ways.
Okay. And did you struggle with issues from your indulgences or scandals?
I don't think so.
No.
So I think I get 2.
Yep. And Zelfa, you're more than a little beat up.
Yeah,
Inside
I'm
and
going
out.
through it. Yeah, I have a level 1 and a level 2 harm and 6 out of 8 stress. I kind of need to lie down.
Okay.
Very, very badly. I'm not going to. I have work to do, but still.
Luckily, nothing interesting is happening over the next couple of weeks.
Surely no.
And last but not least, Karevis. Did you address a challenge with violence?
Yes. Quite clearly.
Yeah. Did you address a challenge with panache in that session?
Well, not when I dealt with the bodyguard, but when I was dealing with her, absolutely. I came up, I bowed, I did a little bit of the, kind of getting a sense of things, and then frankly did a little bit of the have at you until I found myself looking at my own sword on the ground. But before that, I was, doing that.
So I didn't get to rewatch the whole session, but I actually do think that we retconned Karevis getting disarmed because something happened.
Because of the thing. Yes,
something happened previously. So we, the audience, know that there's an alternate universe where Karevis got disarmed in a somewhat embarrassing fashion, but that's not this one.
I was emotionally disarmed. Okay,
Fair.
I was internally disarmed.
Did you express your beliefs drives heritage or background?
Yes, because of the fact that we needed to deal with this straight up, and I said, we can't let this stand, and this person has to be challenged. Yep. So yes, I would say so.
And did you struggle with indulgences or scandals? So your faith is the indulgence.
So.
No,
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I think 3 then.
That is 3 there, and that's XP for everyone.
That actually maxes out my XP, which means I can then get, you said, a special ability or put a point in one of the other ones, right? Is that?
So if you max the playbook track, which is that top right one, you can gain a new special ability.
Okay.
The diamond tracks with body, mind, and spirit are the ones for gaining action dots.
Right. That's right. Okay. Yeah, and I wanted to do this.
So does one of these stand out to you, or do you want to think about it while we talk about other stuff?
Give me a second,
Okay.
and I'll go ahead and I'll think about it.
Yeah, so there's a fair amount of stuff that's happening in the next couple of weeks that is going to be your downtime, including basically all of the worst of the storm season. So as we're doing any of this stuff, it's happening during fairly impressive waves of hurricanes. The thing is, Valloward, the island itself, is almost impossibly insulated against the worst of hurricanes because of the magical work done by the Dialta in centuries past to basically create underwater storm breaks around the island, as well as the architecture that is utilized in much of Valloward itself in terms of being able to modify or shift the buildings to put in storm breaks and storm windows. And people of this island are used to this weather because it is very common, and because Valloward is the richest, most affluent island in the archipelago. Valloward also tends to receive these seasonal refugees that we talked about last time. And so the city is quite full, but the city is prepared for stuff like this. So this isn't an immediate big threat that you or Vorster would need to address by going out and doing something, but it is going to probably be a part of this fortnight, right? It's in the texture of your lives. If you're going out and doing something, we're going to think about, how do you do this during a hurricane or in between waves of a hurricane? A scene that is folks talking inside, we're going to want to remember to imagine the howling winds outside, so that we keep that storm season in mind.
So then, can I ask a question related to that?
Yeah.
Because it affects the special ability. So I'm between 2, which is unstoppable, that you may push yourself to accomplish a feat of speed or endurance that borders on the superhuman, e.g. engage a small group on equal footing, or as the character sheet says, a small groupo, which to be clear is the Valloward word for group. And then the other one is upon a needle, which is you are sure-footed and gain +1 effect where balance or grace is an issue, such as navigating difficult terrain or a dance floor.
Or a hurricane.
Right, exactly. So I was trying to decide about that. I'm narratively, I'm thinking about Unstoppable because one of the things that is going to be going through Karevis's mind is how, he hung in there, but barely, he was badly overmatched by this guy, and thinking a little bit about ways to prevent that from happening, especially given the risk that his coterie might have taken.
Yeah.
But having said that, Upon a Needle feels more valuable to what you were just talking about. So. Sure. I guess my question is the sure-footed thing something which would resist, theoretically, would come into play in stormy weather? Could be, or?
Yeah, so Upon a Needle would come into play if you had to be out and about doing something in stormy weather. Okay. But I will say that Unstoppable is like, so the be a small gang move or do a near superhuman X or Y move in Forge in the Dark games is almost always great and makes for fun scenes. Okay. So if you're leaning toward that one, I would validate that choice as something that I think you will enjoy.
Okay. Also means that I get to use the word from Killer Instinct, unstoppable. So I get to say that a lot. Okay.
Combo breaker.
Combo breaker. It has the absolute ultra combo. Okay. Far too much playing that at the co-op at the University of Connecticut in the mid-90s. Anyway.
Nice. All right. Yeah. So that is that. Darcie, do we want to test out the backup mic?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Am I loud?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, perfect.
It's
I'm glad it works.
Yeah, it's a little less crunchy than the webcam, so I think that'll be fine for tonight.
Yeah, my good one just ran out of batteries. I'm sorry about that.
You're fine. Plus, this has like old-timey radio vibes.
Why, yes. I'm trying to do my old-timey radio voice. I don't know how.
Okay, great.
And all the ships at sea.
Yeah, just everybody bust out your mid-Atlantic accent.
Can we make this a whole sepia tone, like the whole thing?
Oh, yeah, filter.
I'm sure that can't be done in OBS, but that's beyond my skill set for the evening. Now, I think if we're gonna do a whole campaign that was in that era, like if we were gonna do like if there was a Rocketeer tabletop role-playing game, hypothetically.
Ooh.
Does that ever show up in a certain game which might rhyme with blonde Brognauts, Mike? I wonder if that or Flanverflots.
I don't have a pulp adventure subgenre, but that would be pretty fun. I haven't been out to see the new Indiana Jones movie, but that's definitely some glamour for that kind of vibe. At least one of the special abilities would just have to be specifically referencing punching Nazis.
Yeah, that would just right, exactly. That's just what you get by itself. Yep.
Maybe it's like some variation on the line from Rocketeer where the gangsters team up against the Nazis, where they're like, I may be a crook, but something about like everybody hates Nazis.
That's true. I forgot about that. Everyone hates Nazis.
It's a good bit. Excellent. So we have that sorted. I don't have a sepia tones for us tonight. I do, however, have a variety of other challenges to array for you. One thing we need to resolve is what happens with Alonso and Petros when they went looking into getting some Javeli's luck, that drug that has been making problems on the street. So what I think we're going to do there is I'm going to ask somebody to roll the coterie, the house's tier. So somebody's going to roll 2 dice, and we're going to want the highest result. So best you could get is 2 6s. The higher the result, the better their kind of side errand will have gone, and then we'll talk about what that means, what that looks like a little bit, and then they'll be reporting to you to figure out what to do next.
I can make that roll if no one else was
planning. I was going to say we should follow up with Brandon's previous 6 with
I mean
if it gave me a 6 when it was bad, I wonder if it will keep giving me 6s when we're looking for good things to happen.
Exactly.
I have to get very inventive to make problems for players if they only roll 6s in Forge in the Dark games. But here we got a 4 and a 2, and I think with this, Alonso and Petros are not used to working together yet, and with Lutris on assignment, he's not in as good a position to be able to like help coach Petros through this or maybe mediate any personality conflicts between Alonso, because Alonso is, if we recall correctly, terrifying. Mm-hmm. And so what I think this means is that they get a dose of Javeli's luck, but they both return fairly fed up with one another.
Tremendous.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to your house sheet, and I'm going to go down to Alonso's section, and I'm going to add impaired, operates with reduced quality, and this is as if he had the harm fed up. He is fed up with Petros and needs some time away from that annoying street rat, and will have told you as much in giving his report. and handing over the drug. Now, Petros is right there, mind you. So if this were a TV shot, right, we would see the coterie and Alonso would be talking, and we get the reverse shot that is Alonso talking in kind of a gravelly, gravitas-y voice, and then said, "And I am fed up with that uncultured street rat. I'm going to retire to my chambers." And the camera pulls back, and Petros is right there, looking like just the most crestfallen, that like a 16-ish-year-old who is like starting to grow into his frame but is not there, about as despondent as he can look.
I think we kind of watch him, Alonso go, and we're just like, don't worry about him. He's like this all the time. It's just steer clear of him for a couple of days. It's not a big deal.
Gladly. This stuff is dangerous. Like, how much did you find? I mean, we got 2 doses, but the things I saw somebody do with one dose, they ran circles around a patrol of 6 watch people. And it was just the strangest thing. They threw a knife. The knife hit exactly the right place to chop through the guard's armor, pin them to the wall, and then drop a pot on another one. And that's like the medium level of preposterous of things that happened. And worse, when the drug runs out, all of your bad luck catches up with you.
Quick question out of game. Mike, I know this is one of the things that we could have done, was deal with this drug situation. Do we know if the drug, do we know who's allegedly, do we have any notice of who might be behind the distribution of this drug, or do we not know that?
I think on a 6, with Alonso and Petros, you would have gotten a supplier, but
so we don't actually know.
Yeah,
okay.
So you know the single person that sold the drugs to them, but they are a low-level operator.
Okay.
If someone is making or importing it, they are at least a couple of steps farther up the chain from that person.
Okay.
So you can follow up on that. Passing this report on may or may not satisfy the Vorster leadership, or this may turn into something that they ask you to pursue further in the next season.
Mm-hmm. Did we learn anything about the components of the drug?
So that y'all will be able to do over the course of downtime, but I think that's a long-term project.
Okay, fair.
And someone is going to have to spend one of their downtimes or one of a downtime making amends for the situation with Grey Mist and the train. But beyond that, each of you will get 2 downtimes total, and then you can spend influence for additional downtimes.
And so during the downtimes, is that pretty much when you can reduce the amount of stress that your character is taking on?
Yes. So there are a number of downtime actions. One of them is to seek indulgence, which is when you go and you partake of your indulgence as a break from work, and it can reduce your stress. The downtime actions in total are acquire assets, where you go and you try to get a particular thing or a favor or information. Acquiring assets is usually so that you can apply them on the next errand. So someone might acquire an asset that is information about the gambling debt that one of the other Bravos has. I want to acquire an asset that is blackmail on one of the other Bravos because we have this tournament coming up. Acquire assets might also be, in the past we had a shroud that blocked and contained magic. That was an asset that Gensia acquired for a previous errand. You can try to uncover a plot, which is where you investigate one of the other major houses to try to figure out what they're doing. Their big stuff. Like, you have your list of errands that you're supposed to do. The other houses have their own projects that they're working on. And if you uncover a plot, then you can do an intrigue to try to foul it. And if you do that, it will definitely help you in the grand game of houses, because it blocks that house from getting an advancement in this kind of game. You have long-term projects, and long-term projects can kind of be almost anything. If you say, I want to track down the supplier and figure out who made Javeli's luck, then we might say, okay, I think this is going to be a project. And then there's a bunch of different ways that you can advance toward that. We just have to think about the fiction and pick what action that looks like. The downtime actions in this phase tends to be a little bit more unpacked and uncondensed in time, right? We're going to do this over a couple of weeks, not over a couple of hours. There are intrigues, which are big scale plots that are trying to operate at that city faction level. Zelfa currently has an intrigue where she is squaring off against a high-ranking malfeasant member of the Valloward bank, who is trying to kind of push a number of Dialta workers and like sub-communities out of house and home towards some other end. You can recover, which is about dealing with harm. You can make amends, which is what I mentioned for dealing with shame. You can train, which is training your body, mind, or spirit track. So we get a montage of reading or research or parkour training or magical study.
You're the best around.
Yeah.
You're the best around.
And you can indulge and reduce stress. So you partake of your indulgence and can lose stress. Does anybody have an initial action that they know they want to do? I think we may want to take a little bit less time per action for the ones that are a little bit role-playing, because we have other stuff going on and because we had to do the payoff in XP. Okay. But if we're in a session and it seems like I'm wrapping up and you want to go further, just say, hey, can we do one more beat? Or there's a question I still have. Don't let me wrap a scene earlier than you want to without letting me know if there's something else that you want to get done with it or other information that you're looking for. So, Brandon, please go ahead.
Right. Because I knew that this would be a thing that we can essentially do as a montage, I am going to indulge. And in particular, because it's hurricane season, I am going into the Alta communities there's essentially a kind of cleanup period in the middle of actual storm surges, where we just go into communities and make sure that their drains are clean and stuff, because even though these storm breaks are very good to ensure that actual winds don't tear houses down, it does mean that places are still susceptible, even arguably more susceptible to high amounts of flooding than they would have if they just let things roll by. So every once in a while I just kind of go into spaces with a broom and just kind of sweep the drains out, just to make sure that places aren't heavily flooded.
And I imagine that also includes just checking in with people and hey, do you have water and that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I'm already doing the regular sealed food runs as well. That typically includes clean water, clean blankets, sealed first aid kits that will have stuff for treating infected wounds and stuff like that, which becomes a very serious concern during this season, especially because whatever qualifies as ringworms in this world is probably worse than real ringworms.
Oh no, magic ringworms.
Yeah. So it's also sending out some of those packages as well.
Sure.
And especially since this is arguably in the same territories where a lot of the housing issues are also taking place, I'm probably checking on them in that regard as well.
Okay, great. So when you indulge, You're going to roll your lowest attribute. And Zelfa, I see that you still have a 0 in body.
I do. I'm trying to fix that.
So when you have a 0, you roll 2 dice and you take the lower of the 2, which means that you may not be able to get rid of all of that stress.
No bonus dice, no.
Okay. So on a 2 and a 1, you will clear 1 of your 6 stress. Which means you may want to try to reduce stress again, but that will be a little bit later. So what do you, or if Brandon, if you don't have an idea, I'd love to just do a tiny vignette of one moment within this sequence of either a chat with somebody or some weird challenge or situation that you deal with.
Right. So I'll think of it. So the beauty of basing Valloward very largely on the actual Caribbean is when you ask me about things related to flooding, I have examples. So while we were on the sunset line, flooding, high rain surge took place in one of the lower lying parts of Valloward that was so powerful that in the act of rising over the banks of a nearby ravine, it actually broke someone's wall. It took the wall and rolled away with it.
Okay.
So now I need to replace that wall. But it's still raining.
Sure.
So I imagine that starts with me and a bunch of contractors going, can you actually put up a wall in the rain? Will something happen to the cement if it's still wet when we put a brick on it?
Yeah, is this something where, are there people in the community who are quick fix, magic contractors, right? They do the earth magic in emergencies.
Because the question essentially that we need to solve is, do we need to have you stand here until the rain stops and just kind of hold an imaginary wall until we're ready to build? Or can we finish this before the rain gets worse?
Yeah, and clearing only one stress makes it seem like this is really a hard time for Zelfa.
Yeah.
But so it's you're doing the work, but it's not relaxing.
It is not. I'm still.
It's narrated by Morgan Freeman when Andy's crawling out of the thing in Shawshank Redemption. Right, he crawled through 100 yards of shit. That's just what it's like with the rain coming down, and it's it's brutal.
Somebody has to do it. I kind of wish it wasn't me right now, right here.
Yeah, because I'm imagining Zelfa has to hold something while somebody else is doing stuff. You're either holding up some kind of umbrella or holding up a part of the wall so that people can try to hammer something into place.
Especially because the quality of the rain. And especially because I imagine an umbrella is a bad time here. I'm imagining a worse time, which is we had to construct a makeshift tent.
Sure.
To make sure that some some of the materials didn't get wet or potentially harden while wet in this weather. But the winds are too powerful for the tent as well, so I kind of have to physically hold a large sheet of plastic by myself or with one other person, and every once in a while the wind is strong enough to literally take us up off the ground and we're nope, this is not fun. This is
some kind of fantasy tarpaulin material.
Yeah.
Can any of us assist with this, or is this, as part of this downtime action, or will we be using our own downtime action to do that, and or is this something that Zelfa wants to keep within the Dialta? Like, would we be able to do any, like,
I think mechanically you cannot assist in an indulgence.
Okay.
But fictionally, if we want to say that other members of the coterie are doing this, I'm very happy to establish that, right?
Yeah. On a narrative level, I am cool with this as well. But
okay. Because I think
mechanically it will still suck.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But like I think, Greg, I could easily see a indulgence scene for Karevis that is also storm response and storm support.
Yeah, I've already got one in mind, actually.
Okay. So we may come to that. Rhiannon or Darcie, do you have a downtime that you would like to do?
So I want to do at least a recover.
Okay.
Because she has the one harm.
Sure.
And I don't know what I roll for that versus an indulgence.
Yeah. So what is the name of your harm?
Muddled.
Muddled. I think that was a magic harm. It was the downgraded version of getting cut off from your magic, right? Okay, so you have a physician. So in I was going to say in Valloward. It's like, no, in Court of Blades, in the rules part is Court of Blades. Your coterie has either a physician or a grace, and I think the graces are basically magic healers or spiritual healers. And if the harm that you're dealing with is of the type that matches the healer that you have, you get a bonus die. So you have a magic harm, but your coterie has a physician, and that is Dahlia Porter, who is like a medical prodigy plucked from Academia Valloward. So I think for Muddled, she can give you tea or something, and like she has some familiarity, but you may know better what you need, and she's going to be able to facilitate you with like the apothecary stuff that you might need to do that. So what you'll do is you're going to do a fortune roll with dice equal to the group's tier. So that's 2 dice. And again, you want high. Okay. So when you get a 6 and a 5, on a 6 you will clear, you'll put 3 ticks on your healing clock, but I'm going to double check because this game might be a game where level 1 harm just clears when you do the action, which is something that some Forged in the Dark games do. So I'm just going to double check. Because I think this might be the first time we've been doing healing in this game.
Since I've been here, certainly. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yes, so lesser harm, I think I'm going to say you don't have to roll that because lesser harm, level 1 harm does go away between sessions. So I think what we should do there is just think about what would Gensia do to become unmuddled, like spiritually or magically.
Well, I mean, so sort of getting into her indulgence, because her indulgence is the weird being out like in the wilderness, and that's its own thing. It will be a separate action, I would think, in the order. But maybe in a garden or something, trying to find natural sources of magic to focus on and sort of calibrate her magical senses.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so apologies. The harm clears on its own, so you're fine on that. Don't have to spend an action. So if we want to do that indulgence, we can do that now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just tell us a little bit more about, if we're doing a montage of of this action, what does this look like?
So what I was thinking is she definitely wants to get out into the wilderness, and it would be between storms. She's not going to go out in the middle of a storm. But I was wondering if sort of that might make an interesting sort of environment to be wandering around in if, the vegetation is really stripped and there's a lot of sort of like localized flooding out among, the trees or whatever. And she would basically just sort of like go out heedless of the mud and sort of like follow her senses wherever they lead her.
Yeah, I think this season is probably it's interesting because the magic of the island and nature is probably really potent right now because there's so much nature stuff happening, and different parts of the island and other living beings are like having to respond and, you know, testing their resilience. But the magic of the kind of, for the Valloward, the old country, is a magic that is largely about destruction. And so destruction is all around you. So there, I could easily see for Gensia almost like the magic version of, like, you know, dogs go out after a rainstorm and everything smells a bunch more, right? Gensia has this magic sense. And so everything is just like hyper saturated.
Love it.
And so like that, like you get spiritually drunk on that for sure. And then to roll, you're going to, we'll look at your attributes, and whichever has the fewest dots along that kind of left-hand line. So it looks like you've got 1 in body.
Yeah.
So that means you would roll 1 die, and you're going to take off that amount of stress.
Okay.
If you get a different action at 1 or more, then all of your actions will be at 2, and you'd get to roll 2 dice the next time you do an indulgence. Okay. So the better rounded you are as a retainer, the easier it is to indulge and recover stress. Wow. So that's a 6.
Came to play,
right? So, do you think that Gensia has done this during storm season before?
I bet not. Probably,
oh, yeah?
She just sort of.
Well, she's kind of like an indoor kid, right?
Yeah, if she wasn't so stressed, like, she wouldn't be doing it now. She'd be like, "Oh well, you got to stay inside." So.
Yeah, so do we get like the image of Gensia returning to the Vorster compound just like delighted and soaked? Because it's like, right, because we're not in nasty storm, but it's probably, you know, still some amount of raining or whatever, and like tromping around in the world. So that's a fun image for Gensia, who's usually like really restrained and put together.
Yeah.
Okay, and then if there's any other detail you wanted to add to that before we move on. Okay, cool. So Gensia's in a pretty good place in terms of stress, which is lovely. Darcie, do you have an idea for something for Marcelo?
Yes, for sure. Right, how's that sound?
Yeah,
right, good.
That's good.
He's going to have to partake in some indulgences, I think, since
sure.
stress is really high after that near brush with death on the train.
Yeah, it looks like you've got 6 as well. So
yes.
Tell us about the type of luxury that Marcelo goes to indulge in during this stormy fortnight.
Well, it's storm season, and what he loves to do when it's raining and windy. See, he lives in the top floor of a towering building, or as towering as they can be. Obviously not a 100-story skyscraper or anything, but and one wall actually is all windows overlooking what you can see of the city. And so he usually commissions his favorite patisserie to make a plate of just like these overpriced little treats about the size of bonbons, and then just sits there with them at his side on this really nice kind of like velvety plush chair. And as he's eating them, he has a little pair of they're almost like those binoculars for opera. Like
sure, yeah.
So he like holds them up and just like watches people as they struggle against the wind, and just sees the city living beneath him.
Okay.
Whether that works or not, I guess, is up to the dice.
Yeah. So it looks like you've got 2 in spirit, 1 in mind, and 1 in body. So you're going to roll 1d6. If you can get a 6 as well, that's optimal for Marcelo, because that would clear all of your stress with no problems.
Oh, I think that maybe Gensia might have taken those 6s. Let's see if it's 3 times the charm.
The dice are treating y'all pretty well so far? Question mark.
See. Hey,
5. 5's pretty good.
Bad.
Good.
So on 5, you're going to clear 5 of that 6 stress. So if you just want to
perfect.
click on, I think, the first dot on the stress, it should clear everything above it.
Like, it's so relaxing to spy on people, I guess.
Right. Well, because in a storm like this, I imagine that a lot of people, or that maybe a number of people, might slip out of their routine or slip out of like the mask that they show the world, depending on how used to this they are, or like how straining things are for them. So it seems like that might be like A+ people watching. It's a little like, okay, but you could be out there and helping, but you can't be helping all the time, and it's important to take care of yourself. So it's an interesting, odd moment, or I could see it framed that way.
Yes, like he observed like the bookseller who normally walks so calmly down the street is just like running against the wind with his hand thrown up to block it, and he's like, oh, it's so interesting to see people.
Okay, and so it's
out of their elements.
Yeah, so it's about getting that more unvarnished view of people.
Yes.
Okay, plus the bonbons.
I mean, definitely the bonbons are like, out of the 5 points, those are 4.
Okay, very nice. Now, like, so there's a restaurant nearby, and they do a little bit in terms of making pastries, not like an actual patisserie, but I may have to go and get myself a croissant there tomorrow morning. Thank you, Darcie.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that's that. Greg, what is Karevis up to for his first downtime?
So I want to do 2 of the downtime actions. I'm going to use at least one influence to get another downtime action. So, okay. And I'll use one of them to make amends. Okay. I'm not particularly interested in RPing that because I'm also going to be like, see, what happened was, it's going to be a lot of that. Yeah. So the one that I had in mind involves, it is definitely dealing with indulgence. It's a Father Cartagano scene, but it's a Father Cartagano scene where he's helping him go door to door as we've been trying to feed this section of the city. You may remember, and sort of associate it with the church, with the Reformed Church, that Father Cartagano is part of it. And while I'm doing that, when we don't have to go super long on this, but just a bit of RP on what it is that I encountered on the train, or what Karevis encountered. Yeah. So, and then the third downtime, I'm kind of stuck between a couple possibilities. So
okay, so you do the make amends. It's eating crow. You have to kind of smile and nod a lot. It's not fun to do, but you're a bravo. You know how to control your emotions, and so you get through it. Okay. Going out and about with Father Cartagano. For this, we go ahead and roll. So it looks like you've got a 1 in mind and in spirit. So you're also going to roll 1d6. And you have, looks like 5 stress. So a 5 is perfect for you. A 6 causes problems.
Oh, great. Too relaxed. Okay.
It's called overindulging.
Overindulging. Okay. Overhelping the poor. Okay. Am I doing? I do indulge, right? As the click on indulge.
Yeah, if it'll let you do that, it should automatically roll. I will take a look to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Okay, and no bonus dice, just what it is.
Correct. Okay, so it looks like you got A1, which is the other not great option. So it means you're going to go from 5 stress to 4 stress.
Great.
I wonder, like, is this not as relaxing for the same reason that Zelfa's was not as relaxing, because it's actually quite grueling, even if it's emotionally fulfilling?
I think so, and I think it's hard for him to focus a little bit on. I mean, he's conscious in trying. It's really important to him to try to get these people fed, but he's struggling because he feels as if he's, as it were, looked into the face of the devil and is struggling with the implications of it. I don't think Karevis is not, despite the whole being a Bravo thing, I don't think Karevis has some huge ego. I think it's more that Karevis knows his own worth and got badly outmatched, even without the disarming, was dealing with someone that he just barely was able to hold on to, and in fact probably feels like we were lucky to get out of there alive, let alone, whatever else. And feels like there are threats that Karevis can't deal with. So that's probably also making this harder to kind of focus on what he's doing.
Yeah, and so I think maybe the short moment we do, here's my pitch, and Greg, feel free to adjust or point it in a different direction, is that you kind of get to the end of a block with Father Cartagano, and maybe this is in the walk back to the church or back to the cart or whatever, where you have the supplies for people. And in that moment, the two of you have, time to talk just between you. And if you've already kind of relayed some of the story, my pitch for how Father Cartagena would open is, and so if you have to face another killer of that skill or of that style, what will you do differently?
I'm not sure. I didn't really even have much of a chance to get into much of a battle with him. It was mostly holding him off. If I face him again, or someone like that again, I might have to rely on luck. And that's not the idea. It's not my training. Training's about avoiding luck, not being in the midst of it. I don't know what I would do. That's the problem.
Well, it was difficult, as you say, but you had your colleagues with you, and luck did not undo you, as you say, and I'm not going to tell you that I have any particular sway with the gods, as if I have tea with them, but when you go out into the world and you do what you do for your house and your city, know that you carry me with you and my love and the love of the gods, and that all of these deeds that you do and the years of your service to your communities, that goes with you as well. And for whatever that is worth, I hope that you carry it warmly and that you feel comforted by it.
I think Karevis probably would be thoughtful. I would assume Father Cartagena would go on to the next part of the block and probably there'd be a moment where he
punctuates one of these with handing you a stack of boxes.
Right. And so there's a moment where I imagine I'm sort of Karevis is just standing there in the rain, with sort of rain and wind blowing, and then probably is kind of looking up, and then as another set of boxes comes down.
Right. Well, because he says carry that with you, right? So then obviously that's when he hands you boxes.
Right. Is and carry that with you. I'm like, yes. Oh, have this thing. Yeah. I think probably also that I think the way I imagine it is that his words have an impact, but not as much as I would have hoped. That there is still sort of shadows and doubts.
Yeah.
By the way, chat, I referenced this show a lot because I got into it about a month ago. If you get a chance to watch an episode of Netflix's Daredevil season 1, there's an episode where Daredevil goes to talk to a priest, literally, and it basically asks him if he'd ever seen the devil, and that scene is so good. And it's exactly what I imagined a little bit in terms of what, Karevis is imagining. I just remembered, and we're not going to do this now, but for my last downtime, just so you know, Mike, I think I'm going to talk to the coterie about going out to Grey Mist, basically trying to uncover a plot. I think that's going to be the third and final one for me. So
cool.
But that can be later.
So that's at least one action for everybody, and we are at 9:45. So I'm going to suggest that this is a great time for us to take about a 10-minute break for the players, so we can all freshen up and move around and stretch and do all the things that we need to do, since we've been kind of closely attending and telling a story together. As a reminder, thank you, Prince Justin, with our break command in here. A break for us is a break for you, the audience, whether you're watching live or you're watching the VOD later on. So take this as an opportunity to stretch, use the restroom, get a beverage, eat a snack, whatever it is that will let you take care of your body or take a moment to attend to the people that you live with or in community with and take care of them, so that you can then return to join us for the rest of the session of Court of Blades Valloward in about 10 minutes. Thank you. We'll see you in just a bit. Hello, we are back with more of tonight's session of Court of Blades Valloward, a joint production between Speculate and twitch.tv/Arvanelleron, the channel that we're on here, hosted by Greg, aka Arvanelleron, one of our players. So we are returning to our coterie as they attend to downtime matters during the height of storm season, which makes some things a bit more complicated. And they've got just a few things going on between a captive assassin from the most powerful of the other houses, some lingering intrigues to attend to, some injuries, and things like that. So, who has an idea for the next downtime they want to take?
I do.
Okay.
But also, I think our videos are a little scrambled.
Oh, they are. Let me rearrange. Sometimes this happens when we take a break. And
I'm honored to be Brandon O'Brien, just for the record.
Yeah, I'm Gregory A. Wilson. Oh no, I'm Darcie
that guy.
again.
Geez, no. Darcie, I'm sorry.
Thank you for pointing that out, Darcie. We should now be back in our appropriate video areas.
Sweet. Yeah. So, since Marcelo is so relaxed now after taking a little break to indulge, he's kind of thinking ahead, and knowing Bravos, he's certain that they have a lot of maybe hidden weaknesses or potential spots that can be targeted that might not be as well known because they're so good at keeping that stuff in. So
sure.
He would like to seek information just through gossip, honestly, but through the gossip through the right channels, so it can be a little bit more reliable than just whatever you hear on the street.
Okay.
About any potential weaknesses that competitors might have in the upcoming tournament.
Sure. So we could do this as acquire asset if you would like.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please.
I'm just going to double check because I think acquire asset in this game is also rolling tier, which we've been rolling a lot here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to double check. Activities 135, because if it's tier, then that has, things work a little bit different, and then we'll just double check to see if you have any abilities that would assist.
Sure.
Yes, so you will roll the group's tier for acquire asset, and let's take a look at Marcelo's sheet. Did you figure out an ability you wanted to add? If we were doing that for Marcelo.
My ability is shadow, so pushing yourself to perform an act of stealth or athletics with borders on the superhuman.
Okay, so I think a starting character has their special armor and one ability. So if you've gained another, you get something besides shadow.
Ooh. All right, I don't want to God mode this by doing something that would help necessarily. So I was trying to
fine to metagame.
That would be terrible. Since we're fighting the freaking nuclear sword, that would be awful if we had more power.
So let's see.
Better lucky than good.
So infiltrator is really good if you're trying to do stuff directly against the more powerful houses, because one of the things that impacts position and effect is relative tier. But if you're an infiltrator, you could, if you were breaking into the quarters of House Greymist, the fact that they're tier 5 just wouldn't matter for your role.
Oh, I like that. I want to be the infiltrator.
Okay. That will not necessarily directly benefit this role of getting intel, but I think it's going to help you in other things moving forward. So it seems like you're doing this socially, right? So is this
right?
Who does Marcelo go to get gossip on the other Bravos of the city?
So let me think. He'd probably want to target the Bravos of the houses that are the greatest threat to them in terms of strength. Would that be Greymist, actually?
Yeah, so Greymist is the first house, Fairest is the second. Karevis knows the Bravo of Fairest. His name is Rodriguez, and they are, Greg, fairly friendly, you would say?
Yeah, I would say so. Kind of friendly rivals, but friendly, yeah.
Yeah. Valda is the Bravo of Corinne. She's like a seasoned fighter who is regarded as scarily intuitive. Maybe it's magic, maybe it's not. And then Valeria is the Bravo of Greymist. And so you can get intel on any of those. They are the top 3 houses. And then Liron T and Sapphire, houses 4 and 5, also have a Bravo. We just haven't established much about them. So depending on where you want to get information or where you want to focus your attention, we will add detail.
I would say Valeria and Volda sound like the 2 targets, because he's not going to mess with a pal like Rodriguez. And the first approach would be, he'd want to know if there's any place where they have been seen socially.
Sure.
And if so, which type of people are there, and then kind of extend that a step farther. So he's not actually going to be there at that party, but what about the people who are at the party? What parties are they at now?
Okay.
So you kind of, yeah.
You follow the trail.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So we're going to get a montage of Marcelo doing this, right? It's a little bit of tailing, a little bit of like scouting out faces and matching them with people that Marcelo already knows about from being a social operator. And then we cut to a party that person is at, but not the Bravo. And so we go through a couple of those. If you want to go ahead and roll 2 dice for the team, for the group's tier, again, you want to roll high. The higher you roll, the higher quality of intel you're going to gain as an asset to utilize in the next errand.
2d6.
Okay, so on a 4 and a 3, the highest roll is a 4. That will give you an asset that is equal to your group's tier. So it is not going to be something that is powerful enough that it will kind of equal the level of danger of one of those higher tier Bravos, but it's certainly the start of something, and it's something that you can build on. So I think with that roll, you're going to have to pick one or the other, one person specifically. So do you want to go toward the top with Valeria, or do you want to aim a little bit lower with Valda?
I'll go Valeria.
Okay.
Might as well.
So the first thing that stands out from kind of getting intel on Valeria is that Valeria is Oliveri's sister.
I'm writing that down in my little gossip notes right now.
And so she's the fencer. So she's the one that you can expect to fight in the courtly manner. But with Oliveri as a brother, it's not too hard to read into that the notion that you're going to probably see some of that same scary, like Terminator vibes. Or the other character I was thinking of today is like a Treadstone agent from the Jason Bourne series.
Yep.
Where it's like, if you're an army ranger and you come up against a Treadstone person, you're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And so like Karevis is like very skilled and accomplished, and then this person was surprising, right?
Speaking of which, is she gonna know that what happened to her brother, and that we may, that it was the now defunct gang, the Eels, and totally not House Vorster that did it?
Well, y'all are going to have to do some social maneuvering to make that be the case, according to what Gramus believes. So you get, you find out that about Valeria. I think in terms of something that you can use on her, Valeria does not have friends.
Oh, that's so sad.
Valeria seems to view the world as a series of transactions. And so rather than being able to manipulate her through connections, I think maybe the next thing that occurs to you is, okay, but what does she value? Does she value Oliveri? Does she value money? And so that is kind of those are some leads that you can follow, or that you can follow up on, like in the next errand, if Marcelo is participating there, in terms of, this tournament happens over the course of a weekend. So you could get more intel there, or additional downtimes to follow that thread.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Yep. So I know Zelfa has
Because
some harm.
Yes. So I kind of wanted to ask a question about that harm as, in fact.
Yes.
Because I think Soul Seared has only recently gone down and is presently at level 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the disheartened harm condition in our last encounter. I'd like to get rid of one of those, very obviously.
Yes. So the disheartened condition will clear over the course of downtime as a level 1. So you can go ahead and clear that one. But if you would like to reduce Soul Seared, then you'll want to go and have a visit to Dahlia, who again is not a specialist in magical harm, but is able to, give you some salves or tinctures, or kind of tell you some things that then you maybe take to Gensia for some suggestions as like the house's knack. But for healing, you'll get to roll the tier, and the 1, 2, 3 spread of results for filling your healing clock. So you can spend influence to add dice to that roll, or you could spend influence to increase the result level after the roll. Gensia, if you think that you would be participating in Zelfa's attempts at kind of tending the soul ceiling, then Zelfa, you can roll with +1d.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, and that's a free assist. You don't have to spend stress, Gensia.
Okay. So tier. What's our tier?
2.
Aha. So I'd be rolling 3 right now.
Correct.
Do you want to save this influence for after the roll then?
So when you have 3 dice, the marginal gain from 3 to 4 is probably more about increasing your chances of a crit. With 3 dice, your chances of getting at least 1 4 or higher is like 80-something%. But the chances of getting a 6 are not nearly that high. Because getting a 6 would add 3 ticks to your healing clock. You need 4 ticks to fill the clock. So another thing to think about is, do you save the influence and hope for a 6 that you can take 3 and then go up by 1 result level to fill 1 whole clock and take your level 2 harm down to level 1?
Yeah, that makes much more sense. So I think I'll just roll these 2 dice.
Okay, so 3d6. 4, 4, and 3. So that would be a result of putting 2 ticks on your clock. The difference between 2 and 3 is such that you're probably better off spending an influence to roll again rather than to increase your result level. But of course, this is up to you.
Yes. I will in fact do that.
Okay. And so we get a montage of Zelfa going to Dahlia and Gensia giving, assistance or advice in one or another way. And, these are happening in between these other activities because this is more than one downtime.
So this is the same 3?
Yes.
Okay.
1, 2, and 3. Oof. So that would add one tick. If you spend an influence, you can then fill the clock or roll a 3rd time. Y'all did get a fair amount of influence, so this isn't gonna break you to do.
Because my influence was also full, so I can spare 1 more for this.
Okay.
Right, let's do that 1 more time.
1, 4, 1. So on a 4, you get 2 ticks. Your soul seared will go down to, let's say, troubled. Or if you have another idea for a level 1 spiritual harm, maybe unsettled.
Soul, itchy soul.
Oh God.
Prickly soul.
Okay. So I guess at some point I have to do that again.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen right away.
So a level 1 harm would then clear between seasons, right? As we go between summer and fall, the unsettled would clear as long as you, like, it doesn't get worse in some way. It's only going to reduce your effect in situation, like basically if you're using channel or something else that is spiritual, it may impact your effect there, but it may not impact your effect on other stuff.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, we've got that montage. How does Zelfa feel about this taking so much effort/rest?
So, I think the thing that I'm trying to process at this point is, I imagine that the soul seared condition in particular is actually causing me a great deal of pain, but also I can see that it's depriving me of the ability to work. It's like, I imagine the soul seared condition in particular as, what if ADHD came with joint pain?
Ooh.
Wow.
No, thank you.
Right? So I was like, yeah, let's deal with that. In the narrative sense, I was kind of like, I'm trying to create a narrative trajectory between this and stress, whereby Zelfa is realizing that it is actually very difficult to continue working in this way, and is trying to do all of the things that are necessary in self-care terms to get back to work,
right.
Because the work has to happen anyway, because my next downtime is going back to my intrigue.
Right, and doing this while you still have 5 stress.
Yes. This is going to be a lot. So yeah.
I think we're now feeling the thing that Forged in the Dark games do, where they escalate and escalate and escalate, and you don't get to put all of your ducks in a row between every session perfectly. The ducks are, of course, not in a row because of the storms.
Yes.
Okay. So that's some stuff for Zelfa. Who's got another thing they would like to do? Downtime or pitching a scene?
So I did have a question. So since we have the one shame,
yes,
and that's going to continue to need somebody to spend a downtime each time.
Right.
What was it that, can we do anything now to get rid of the shame?
Right.
Or it's an errand that gets rid of the shame. Is that
normally you spend an errand on addressing that shame? So if you were going to punt and say, well, we're not going to do the tournament as an errand, it's just going to be a thing that happens, and we're not going to like put a lot of effort into it, and we're going to make amends instead, then I would figure out how to make that interesting as a thing that we do and we role play. Otherwise, I think a long-term project could address it, but it would probably be a long-term project with like 8 segments. So it would take a number of actions, and we would talk through, okay, what are the major beats of how you make amends in this downtime? But that could also stretch across a couple of downtimes, but you would lose that action every downtime until the shame is resolved. So if you would like to get that started, we can definitely do that.
Well, I was just sort of weighing, because my other thing was that I was thinking to do something with a luck potion.
Sure.
Just sort of gain asset to get an ingredient list or something like that, that's sort of straightforward and gets that sort of moving along. And if the others are okay with that, I think that's probably the direction I'd go.
Yeah, I think if you're working on the drug, I would suggest a downtime project rather than acquiring an asset, because getting something can be part of filling that project. But the thing to do as a group is set the scope. When this project is done, what will you have accomplished? Will you have found the creator? Will you have figured out how it's made and how it works, or something else? basically setting your target, and then that will let me decide how big of a clock to make it.
I mean, found the creator, right? Because presumably you're going to want to know, I would think Gencia would want to know what exactly, why was this made in the first place? What's the motive for doing it? What is he or they or she hoping to accomplish? Like all that stuff, right? Like I would think finding the creator would be, the most important thing.
Well, I mean, it's either side. Like either you figure out more about it, and that leads you to who might have done it, or you find who did it, and that leads to more about it. And like just Gencia alone, she's coming at it from having it in hand and coming that direction. So she'd say, I'll figure out like how it's made, what it's done, how it does what it does, and then hand that to somebody else to go and find a creator from that.
Sure.
It's sort of...
That's logical, yeah.
Yeah, and so this could also be 2 projects. It could be kind of reverse engineer or learn how this works and how it was made, and then that will put you in a better fictional position to do something else about it.
I think that's what she would go for. So
okay, so I think for Gencia, the engineering part of analyze and figure out how this is made would be a 4 o'clock. So I'm going to copy this other 4 o'clock, and then I'm going to turn it into a new thing real quick for you. Okay, and that is this. So we should now see a clock analyze Javeli's luck on the in the clocks section of the Roll20, which is this landing page toward the right hand where like there's the paperwork and the pictures and things. Okay, so Gencia, what action are you using to study this drug? Or it doesn't have to be study, but to advance this clock, sorry.
I mean, so channel if she can.
Sure, right.
Because that's what she has the most of. So.
It's absolutely doing magic stuff, so that makes sense.
Okay.
So this is the kind of thing where someone could assist you if we have an idea on how one of the other PCs or one of your like retainers might help.
I mean, Zelf is pretty busy. I don't know that Gencia would ask.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm in a lot of pain. I'm very sorry.
Yeah. I think that's
Totally
a very good fictional justification and a reasonable assessment. But barring that, you would get your 3 dice for channel. Let me see if anything else would apply. You're always aware. Act on that knowledge. I don't know that necessarily applies here. I'm looking at the house sheet and your abilities there. No, okay. So I think that is just your straight up 3D roll. Because this is downtime, this doesn't have an effect. So you can do this as a fortune roll if you'd like. Fortune rolls are very common. Woo!
Wow.
So that's
really just Gencia. The real answer is just like Rhiannon brought it for Gencia today is what we're talking about.
So
none of us have this, but like
magical
you
science.
Just go fireball all the other houses. Can you just do that now before we're like?
So this is the new CBS show MSI Valloward, Magic Scene Investigators. So on a crit, you fill 5 segments. This clock only has 4 segments.
Wow.
So
the extra segment destroys House of Grey Mist by itself.
So I'm just gonna consult my notes about Javeli's luck real quick and see how I think this might apply.
You rolled so well on that. You learned so much about Javeli's luck that now the GM also learns things about Javeli's luck that it didn't know beforehand.
It's actually Walter White who made this. I didn't think that was possible.
Okay. So you basically have reverse engineered the formula for Javeli's luck, so you can make more if you want. It involves some decently but not especially rare ingredients. That tells you that the group that made it is probably not that much higher in tier than your coterie. You would guess that they're probably around tier 2 or 3. And I'm just going to go to my factions sheet to make sure that the people I'm thinking of are in fact in that area, in that tier. Yes, and because you got a crit and you both filled that clock and have a tick that you can put into whatever next clock about Javeli's luck, the way that this is made, you think would have required that the person doing that magical crafting would be using plentifruit in the process. That there's some kind of like augury divination element to this like rearranging and manipulation of luck. And so you're going to be looking for a faction or an individual that has some kind of access to plentifruit, whether that is Corinne or Sapphire on the kind of the higher end, or some other faction that has the resources to be able to get their hands on some plentifruit. And so among the factions that are out and about in the city, beyond those major factions, Academy Valor, somebody could requisition that kind of material in the magical sciences area, right? The school that you came up through. The Echo Society, which are rebel fate witches, like they do plentifruit, but they're operating in a more like oppositional, outside the social order fashion. So they're not like the oracles of Corinne or the kind of like mystery cult elements of Sapphire. They don't have the social approval that either of those houses have. One of the higher end crime families could probably access that, but crime isn't like magic isn't their specialty. Theoretically, the churches could probably get access to plentifruit because the local churches, like the ones that are Valloward focused and like Goddess of Plenty focused, there is some kind of tie into plentifruit. So the Valloward Church of Plenty is an option. So those are who you regard as the most likely creators if this is being done on a faction level, which, given how this drug has spread in the city, seems really likely. But I am also going to delete this clock because it's totally full, and I'm going to start a new 6 clock and put 1 tick into it because of your crit. And this is so the ultimate goal is like track down the supplier.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So I'm going to name it thusly, and I'm going to put 1 tick on it from your crit. So you're already making some progress there. That's expressed fictionally by narrowing down some of the options. All right. So we get that montage of Gensia and studying, and there's notes, and there's like reverse engineering, and there's cross-referencing, and if there's any other details you want to add in terms of how she would approach this.
So I was thinking about the CSI sort of thing with the like very sort of like far away kind of like doing it glassware, and I think she's much more hands-on, much more sort of like feeling it between her fingers for good or ill. Yeah. Waving the scent, that kind of thing.
Okay. So like a really sensory experience.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. That's fun because I gave a framework and you're like, well, I want to do this thing. And like that gives us real specific information about how Gensia approaches, which I love.
Probably more stains on her fingers.
Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the gloves, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I'm guessing that Gensia is sharing this information with the rest of the coterie.
Yeah.
How do y'all feel about this? The information that she's uncovered so far.
I mean, my Marcelo is impressed that in such a short time, she was able to derive the components, and not just any components, but this fruit that kind of helps us pinpoint potential sources, but is also intimidated because those potential sources include a lot of very dangerous and powerful people. But if you approach it the right way, maybe we can get the upper hand.
I mean, Zelfa, knowing that Gensio was doing the work, is like, of course we're gonna get all of these pieces of information this easily, and is very proud of that fact. But I'm also very perturbed by the fact that Planetary Fruit is involved, because if the luck that is acquired from Javeli's luck is a metaphysical act of divination, it means that essentially the drug knows things that its consumers do not know and cannot know. And that is intriguing because it means that it is theoretically possible to bombard a user of Javeli's luck with too many opportunities for the luck to be used, and therefore still gain the upper hand in conflict against them. But it also implies that in any of those engagements, the drug will decide to do a thing that can cause harm to other people in ways that its consumers cannot control.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't know what.
It's a bad time.
Yeah.
The other thing that Petros would have given you is that part of why this is a problem is that once people on the street started to understand how it works, people would just go from dose to dose to dose. And so they would defer the bad luck, and then it would all show up at once, Final Destination style. And that's why you're getting like, oh, well, there was a fire over here, and there was like a carriage accident there. It's not too hard to start to put the bigger picture together with having more information.
Yeah. In a very academic sense, a part of my brain is like, what happens if two consumers of Javeli's luck try to shoot each other in a duel?
Luck versus luck.
But I imagine the answer to that question is, one of those instances of the drug decides whether someone else nearby deserves to die, and I don't know. I don't think I like the answer to that question.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to deal with that.
Was Gensia able to figure out, was this part of the information you gathered about when this was manufactured? As near as you can tell, like when did this start hitting the street? When did this start getting made?
So Gensia, the doses that you have are newer. They were definitely made after the drug started showing up. So this was not one batch that has been kind of parsed out across time.
Okay. Multiple batches. I think Karevis is just hoping that it turns out that a lot of it is focused on, well, gray mist in a way, because having another house is going to, if it turns out to be someone else, it's a lot of balls for us to juggle, if we're having to deal with that also. Yeah. Because obviously we can't just continue to sit there and let the drug problem just spiral out of control, but we also have other things to figure out, like nuclear deleting swords and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another version of that question that I'm fascinated if that research has come up in Jensia's reading is, have you noticed that whether there is a particular pattern in terms of whether there are any districts in Valloward that are more likely to have previous consumers of the drug, or previous instances of Javeli's luck finally backfiring?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think this is probably getting more use in the higher crime parts of the city. People are using it for scores. It's being sold in areas where the criminal elements are able to operate more effectively. But it's not only being used there. because where people get it isn't necessarily where they use it.
I mean, Marcelo thinks that the potential for this to be used as a performance enhancer in some competition is very high, considering that you only need a quick bout of luck to win, and then take your bad luck afterwards. So that's an approaching event that you think is going to be a hot spot for it.
Yeah.
Well, so
it's been on my mind too.
Here's a thought as far as like both the upcoming competition and balls in the air. If we do have to sort of push off following the supplier till later, I'm wondering about, because I could spend an influence for another downtime action, doing something with starting a clock on making a counter to it. Because like if we can counter it at the festival, and if we can maybe try to counter some people using it on the street, that sort of damage control.
Sure.
While we're dealing with everything else.
Yeah, I think you could, because you've reverse engineered the formula, you could make a counter agent as an acquire asset action. You wouldn't need to fill a project to do that, because I think you basically unlocked the formula.
Sure.
I'm curious metaphysically how that would work. Any thoughts you might have on that?
So I feel like it's all about like wildly unbalancing. You unbalance high and then you unbalance back to bad. And so I feel like the counter would not be putting more weight on either side. It would be going neutral, and so sort of like trying to have no luck, which doesn't make sense in sort of like word terms, but metaphysically sort of, or maybe if you're thinking about a balance scale, shortening the arms so that there's hardly any room to sort of move back and forth. So
like narrowing the window of possibility, or the range of possibility. Interesting. Yeah. It's like, I'm curious about this. Let's establish this in the fiction. Okay. So we have that as an option. Does anybody else have downtimes that they want to accomplish?
One more, which is trying to deal with, as I see it, we have the gray mist situation, we have the situation with following the supplier, we have the hibiscus thing coming up next. And so we probably, to go back to the balls in the air thing, maybe we just need to follow a lot of these down. So it means that, we have influence. I guess we might have smoke them if we got them, as they say. So I guess what I should do is use one influence for a third downtime and make that the starting the project to try to track down what Grey Mist is doing with this. In particular, what I want to know really is the guy, what the guy was doing with the, nuclear deleting sword and all that. I would like to track down more information about that and about what they're doing with a kind of weapon like this, and what the implications might be. Also, I should say, it would be good to get a little bit of advance info, which I think Darcie was, which I think Marcelo was starting to do, about the kind of the bravos in the competition that I'm going to face as the bravo in this competition. So there's that too. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't know, I can just blow all my influence and just check out everything in the city, like use all. But so I have to kind of balance out. I don't know what all you think is the most important thing, but I do think we need to like keep following up with the Grey Mist thing. But any of those other things I mentioned are also important. So I don't know.
So I would say
at this point, considering like the thing about juggling many balls in the air is once a ball is in the air, you don't have to think about it until it's coming back down. So I feel like
that sounds like a juggler using luck, my friend. I don't have to think about this again. It'll be fine. That's a problem for future juggler.
Like the ultimate priority at in this process is the next ball.
Okay.
So I feel like knowing that the Hibiscus Festival is coming up, knowing that the consequence of the engagement that we've already had with House Grey Mist is that we will be confronted directly house to house at some point, and that we know that we can lean on the people who witnessed that scene to vouch for us when that time comes. I feel like the priority would be getting you ready for the Hibiscus Festival. And if we are confident that that interaction will also involve Javeli's luck, then giving you the ability to at least ensure that you are not seriously harmed as a result is better for us, because at least we would be able to reasonably judge whether somebody else is using it there and use that as a potential leg up, rather than worry about it immediately in the moment.
Okay.
In which case, either you win the tournament, you don't die, or you don't die and you get to confidently assure yourself that you know somebody that we can use to trace ourselves back to the supplier anyway.
How long is it going to? How far into the clock, Rhiannon, did Jensia get for the counter?
So the counter is just to gain asset. The clock is 6 to find the supplier.
Did you get the counter already? Did you get the counter already then? Did you, because of the gain asset thing? Did you?
Well, it's waiting for my third downtime.
Okay, because I was going to say, because here's what I'm thinking. Then what might make sense based on what was just suggested is Karevis goes and gets information on a Bravo, which I think I can pitch to Mike as going to the Bravos, that club that they all sort of hang out and sort of getting a sense of what they're doing in terms of training, making sure that you have the counter done, because I'm probably going to need it. Because what's going to happen is they're going to, like, I'm going to need it at some way so that I can maybe like put in the end of my sword and counteract luck, or I'm going to be fighting like, Neo multiple times and like a cross between Neo and all three Musketeers in one. So probably I need to get some information about them from the Bravos Club if you can do the counter. So that would be, and I know you already acquired the assets, so that'll be during your downtime. So yeah, if you want to do it for that, then I guess I should go to the club, as they say.
This brings up a very important metaphysical question. Is it a performance enhancing drug if its stated goal is to ensure other people aren't taking performance enhancing drugs around you?
I think that's an argument for some people to make. That sounds like a thing that one of you who is not Karevis will be doing during the next errand.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So for Karevis, there's a few ways of doing this, right? Okay. You could try to acquire an asset that is like intel or leverage on one of the other Bravos. Okay. You could do a gather information roll just as free play, where there would be some risk, but we would use the normal gather info rules, right? Because you have the fictional opportunity in this salon, and there would absolutely be a pre-tournament salon meeting where there's a lot of posturing, there's a lot of like people trying out like a version of a move that they want to use in the tournament, but they want to still hold something back, right? It's like it's the last scrimmage before the tournament.
Yeah. I think it's important to gather information, which I gather would be more of a general information role, because I don't know who I'm facing in the competition yet. So if I get something on some specific person that I never match up against, that's, so I think it's more of a gather information role would be my thought. Okay. So for gather information, let's see. And that's just, is that? Is that an actual thing, or is that just a fortune roll?
Gather information is a type of roll. You get to pick what action you use to gain that information. So is it about, do you fight hard enough to provoke some kind of like exposure of information? Do you consort? Do you study people while they're sparring other people?
No, I think this would be skirmish then, and it's not just because I happen to have a lot of dots in skirmish. It's also because that seems to me the way that I'm going to get someone to slip, based upon overextending themselves, something along those lines. And I can be, making some dramatic, your blade would cut deep if you were holding it against me instead of yourself. Use the business end, that sort of thing. Like if I'm doing that sort of stuff to provoke a little bit in a friendly way, that might be useful, because I don't want to stand out as trying to gather information. I want to be doing this like I'm training with everybody,
Okay. So the other option you have, because you have gap in the armor, is to approach this with survey, to look for a weakness in somebody's form, or to look for an injury or something, where you could use survey, but then you would take +1d and +1 effect, making use of that information.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So then, yes, because of the extra effect is useful.
Yeah.
So then survey.
Yeah, you'd have your 2 dice instead of 3. Do you think?
Position?
Yeah. Do you think Karevis would bring one of the other members of the coterie along to help with that, and if so, how might they help?
I would bring Marcelo, because Marcelo has been doing research on the Bravos anyway.
Sure.
And because Marcelo would be able to be ascertaining, like, when this happened, there was a redness in the eyes, I could tell, or whatever it is. Some awesome I'm Batman thing. But that would be my thought, because Marcelo's been working on this anyway. So
yeah. Marcelo.
If Marcelo wants to do that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we've gotten a little bit of how Marcelo is studying the Bravos. So in a scene, this is an inside salon this time because of the storm, right? And so we've got
so it's storming outside while we're training inside, because that's dope, right?
And so howling winds and the shutters occasionally rattle, and
nice.
That's juxtaposed with the clash of steel on steel and the sounds of leather-soled boots back and forth across a tile floor or across the mats. I think there's probably some fights that are on a long piste, and then there's some that are fought in the round, where you have like, this is like a 10 by 10 square that you're fighting in, or like a 15 foot diameter circle. And there's a few different things, right? Because there's different scenarios or different styles for duels and sparring and things like that. Okay. So in that scenario, Marcelo, where it's a bunch of peacock jocks and their buddies, attendants, other colleagues like you are with Karevis. In that kind of an environment, how is Marcelo assisting in helping in getting Karevis to be able to expose someone's weakness in one way or another?
I think that in that situation, it's all about observing. Because people, as they're sparring, they give away potentially, like, their left side tends to be weaker. Then you can observe that by seeing them spar often enough.
Sure.
So he's not going to try to talk too much about the ins and outs of something that he's not completely familiar with, but he would just be pretending to be like a spectator, enjoying the show of seeing these powerful jocks fighting before the big day, and in that state of mind, or at least he's going to like tell everyone that's what he's doing, and he is observing them. It's just more of a kind of fact-finding mission there.
Okay, great. So because this is a free play assist, Marcelo will need to spend 1 stress.
Sure.
And then, Greg, you're going to get +1d to your survey roll.
Okay. What's my position on this? This
is going to be risky standard. And the risk is basically that in trying to get information, you might give away information.
Although because I'm doing gap in the armor, it means I'm increasing effect, yeah?
So the survey roll you make normal, and then you get a greater bonus from the information you get here.
Oh,
so the
okay.
survey is like a setup roll.
Okay, so I just accidentally. Okay, there we go. Okay, so risky standard. So my bonus dice on this would be 3, or no, or 3 or 4, because.
So you're rolling survey with 1 bonus die.
Oh, sorry.
Your normal survey and then +1 for Marcello's assistance.
Okay, right, because gap in the armor die is still coming on the next. The next roll. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, there's a 6. So on a 6, you get good information. So I have named the other Bravos. So we've already established Valeria, Rodriguez, and Valda. The Bravo of Lironti is Marlowe, who is like more like a football jock, like fairly big build, uses like a thicker, more like a warlike kind of blade for fencing, but for a big guy, he is frustratingly fast. And so while, you know, other people are moving around with lighter, quicker blades, his offhand defense is amazing. So like he goes in for a slash, someone goes around and tries to like disengage and go in for a flick, and you know, he can be doing this and then just bat a sword away with an offhand. And so that's scary. And then
scary, drugged up scary, like amazingly drugged used amazing.
So for this moment, I'm going to give you a menu, and then you pick who you think you get good information on.
Okay.
And then the last is Ren, W-R-E-N. Marlowe is he, him, and Ren is they, them. And Ren is like, what if a Renaissance, like goth plague doctor was a fencer? So kind of lean, and a bit of like sallow complexion.
Fencing with their mask, right? They're like with the plague mask.
Right. Well, like masks are a big thing in Ilrian, and I don't think we've done as much with masks. But I think because it's fun, Ren has like it's not very elaborate, but it's like kind of a Italian-y court mask that has a bit of that bird nose, and they have a bit of like a Corvid's manner of like a bit zippy there. And so that's Ren and Marlowe.
Who's the Bravo for who? Ren?
Ren is the Bravo of Sapphire.
Sapphire. Who's the Grey Mist Bravo?
That is Valeria, Oliveri's sister.
Oh, right.
And Marlowe is the Bravo of Lironti.
Right, yeah, I got that one. Famous Bravo.
Yep.
Sister Oliveri.
And you already know some of Rodriguez's style. And so I'm happy to let you tell me a little bit about like what's Karevis's read of Rodriguez as a Bravo or as a fencer, if you have an idea.
I think that Rodriguez is, even though they're similar ages, Rodriguez sort of looks back to the old masters. So in a way, there is a bit of the fading past in the way that Rodriguez fights, but he is a Bravo that fights using the echoes of what made that past great. In other words, his fundamentals are exceptional. His footwork is tremendous. And the sort of flashy stuff that the younger Bravos favor, which is very awesome looking and pound my chest cool, is not getting the job of, for all the Street Fighter fans in chat, a nice simple neutral medium punch, right? And that's so he's very good at those sorts of things. I have no. It's probably because I'm tired. I just had the analogy of the king in the Cars movie. Like everyone respects him, whatever, and he's kind of like, and he's still really good, but you get the impression that he's sort of on the other side, but not like he's not like a shell of himself or anything, but definitely he fights in an older way.
Yeah, because like having studied, late medieval and Renaissance European fencing. one of the early masters in that era is Agrippa, who
Right.
is very much
Studied
about the
Agrippa.
mathematics
Yep.
of fencing, and so the geometry. And Agrippa is a foundational figure for the later Iberian styles in La Verdadera Destreza, the true art, which is like, what if sacred geometry lets you fence a guy real good?
Right.
Is like,
Right.
that's my very reductionist fan
No,
read
that's
of
good.
La
That's good.
Verdadera Destreza. And so I would frame Rodriguez as kind of having a more Agrippa style.
Okay.
And so it's
Yes.
like not flashy. You're not going to have a whole lot of unexpected stuff. If he lands a hit, he's just going to have done the math right
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and drilled the move.
And he's very disciplined.
So,
It's
like,
hard to break down his defenses. Yeah.
Great execution.
Yep.
And so you've got those 5 other Bravos.
Okay.
Who do you want to get good information on? Or you can get okay information on 2.
They both have swords.
It's not going to be as useful, but you would get that for 2 of them.
Right. Rodriguez is House which?
Fairest.
Fairest, right? Yeah. Okay. I think
I have my notes that I'll just put in here for everybody.
I got it. I think I need to get what I really think he would do is try to get the best information of Valeria.
Okay.
First of all, not only because of what just happened with her brother, also we're trying to do some work on Grey Mist, and also if she's anything like her brother, and then she's also got this, she's drugged up on something, I need to know that ahead of time. So I think she would be the one that I would put at most. This is where I need the best information, I think.
So it doesn't take long in watching Valeria fight here to recognize Oliveri in her. Not only a family resemblance, they appear to be like blood siblings, siblings by birth, but she has some of that same I'm just going to do what I do and you can't stop me kind of confidence in how she fights, which extends to she will accept a nasty bruise to score what is regarded as a clean hit.
Yeah.
So she throws her whole self into the fight, which means that you think if you can withstand her, you can wear her down. And because you got a 6 and you're focusing on her with gap in the armor, you're starting to get some of that sense of these are the things that cost her more energy to do, right? She, it takes her more energy to do body voids than parries. So if you can come at her in a way where she can't parry, the way that she dodges, that seems to be more costly in like stamina to her than parries, because she doesn't have to move her body, right? She's just moving hand and arm. So go ahead.
Do I think I can bait her? Do I think that if I fight her, I can bait her into dodging? Like I can do a series of feints, right, to kind of create and sort of sap energy?
Absolutely. The thing is going to be that because she's a tier 5 combatant, you expect that she is going to be as much, she's going to be as tiring to you as Oliveri was, like kind of scary and like, oh, whoa, okay, well, I need to shut this down fast.
Yeah.
But if your approach with Valeria is to wear her down, you're going to have to weather the storm for a while.
Well, we're in hurricane season.
All right. Yeah, and so Valeria is kind of pale in complexion. She's a little bit smaller than Oliveri. She has some of that same like rugged, handsome smile. Like she has kind of more of a like a butch vibe. Kind of short, shaggy hair. Shirt worn open with a jerkin over it, kind of devil may care attitude. But then in a fight, it's just like no,
Yeah. Does she look distressed? Does she look like she's dealing with issues? Like, and I'll do a roll if you need me to, but I want to know if she seems preoccupied
I
despite the
mean,
whole thing. So
you get a nasty look from her 1,000%. She doesn't bother to hide that.
I smile broadly. Okay, that's good to know.
Okay. So that's
I'm going to eliminate every sibling in this family. I want you all to know right now that this family.
You're just going to prune that family tree.
I am pruning the family tree. These people are bad news. No, okay. But mostly because I'm concerned about the implications of what these people having this kind of power can do.
Yeah.
So okay. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and Darcie, because Marcella was there and in the scrap with Oliveri, you're part of that process helping Karevis piece this all together, right? Because you're there, and so there's this moment where the two of you are conferring and you talk through to get all of that information out there to just make sure that you're included in that moment.
I think I might say to Marcella something to the effect of, you saw that look that she gave us when we came in.
Oh boy. Now, is there any way Marcelo can distinguish between, let's say he regards her interactions with other people, good and bad. Is that look that she gave them like a level spicier than any other look she's given any of her adversaries,
Was it a level 5 look, Mike, a top tier look?
You got high Scoville dagger eyes.
Yeah. Okay. Marcel's going to say, "Oh, she knows."
And so I say, I kind of like, that's good to know. I was afraid it wouldn't be a challenge. And then I give Marcelo kind of this, great, our lives are wonderful look, and then I whisper, if she's anything like a brother, and if there's something going on with this drug you talked about. I just kind of shake my head and I say, I'm going to have my hands full.
Yeah, without a drug, I'd say you'd have your hands full. I just hope that we're able to have a what would it be, like a vaccine, or what would they call it?
A counter agent?
Yeah, an antidote.
A counter agent.
Or counter agent, yeah.
Counter agent at our disposal. I was like, oh, can you vaccinate against a magical drug? I guess not.
Okay. All right. So from there, let's go to Gensia. Are you still going to try to...
Yeah, montage cut to Gensia working in the lab on the counter.
Try and deliver that counter agent?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So this is acquire asset again, which is rolling your tier of 2 dice. You can spend influence to increase that die roll before, or you can spend influence to increase the result level after the roll. The result level is going to determine the tier of that asset, right? So if you have a if you have a tier 3 counter agent, it would 1-to-1 cancel a tier 3 usage of Javeli's luck.
Okay.
So you think that tier 3 should do it based on your analysis of the scale of the drug itself, right? That the maker is probably tier 2 or 3.
Okay. Well, I spent 1 influence for this extra downtime action, and I mean, it seems kind of good to get it to tier 3 if I can. So I think I'll spend another 1 to roll 3 dice.
Okay, yeah. Let's see that roll. Okay.
Every time 6.
I'm not fudging, I promise.
More dice.
Notice it was the first die as well, so you didn't even need the third die. Like your die was like, all right, fine. Like,
Are you sure?
Are you taking some Gensia's some things luck?
Gensia's luck.
I know the maker.
Okay, so Rhiannon, you can mark down tier 3 Javeli's luck counter agent.
Okay.
So that puts you in a good position to be able to, if this is going to Karevis, you're fairly confident that is going to cancel out at least 1 full dose of this drug. If multiple people are using it, that may be tricky. The nice thing about this game is that if somebody else shows up and it looks like they have the drug, you can flash back to having made more. Because flashbacks are great. Okay. So we've talked about it as a counter agent, but Rhiannon, since Jency is the magic crafter in the situation, does she have like a special name for the counter agent?
I don't. Well, let's see. It's a potion of rebalancing. Let's say.
Okay. Very cool. All right, so you've got that locked in. And Zelfa, do you have something else you would like to do tonight?
I do. I'm going to spend another influence so I can get back to my intrigue.
Great. So I'm going to scroll down to your intrigue. So you are going after Aquili and the sub-faction of the Bank of Valloward that is behind him and is arraying itself against Dialta populations in Valloward. You have 5 ticks of 8 completed in your intrigue, and the racing clock that's against it is at 3 ticks of 6. So the action you pick is going to determine what the position is, and then on anything lower than a 6, the bank's clock is going to advance as well, right? Because on intrigues there's a race. So what is your approach for this attempt?
So it's either a consort or a sway. I highly suspect, given the nature of the people I'm interacting with, it's probably a consort, but you'll have to let me know which is, at this point, I'm taking all of the evidence that I've already gathered, all of the notes from locals that have already spoken to me about their rent or homeowning situation, copies of official documents that I've gotten from the courts since the last hostile interaction,
Right.
a very strongly worded recollection of that interaction in the first place, and other various documents, with the intention of finally going to a magistrate and going, okay, this is obviously what is happening with the Bank of Valloward. Can you provide an injunction of any sort that would ensure that these people can continue, that can maintain their homes?
Okay. So
And be properly recompensated for all of the weirdness that has already happened as well.
right. So I'm just going to double check intrigues. Racing clock. Making progress. I'm just looking.
Because I'm very curious at this moment, if both of us roll enough to get 3 ticks, does it become a matter of who rolled higher? Who got more? Do I just win because I did it first? Like,
Right.
I'm very curious.
I'm just double checking the rules to remind myself exactly how the opposing clock advances, because my recollection was that it advances as consequences to your roll, right? Failure marks the appropriate number of ticks on your target's racing clock, though these may be mitigated as usual with a resistance. So the default position for these rolls for intrigues is controlled, but your target's tier available assets and the number of ticks on your enemy's racing clock might mean that you carry out your machinations from a different position. So they're 50-50. They're halfway there. You are more than halfway there, but you are part of a tier 2 coterie going up against someone who is using the tier of the bank. And the bank, I'm sad to say, actually, I don't think Aquili gets tier 5. I think Aquili gets tier 4. So you're going up against someone 2 tiers higher. So I think this is going to be a risky roll, which means that on a failure, I would add 2 ticks to the opposing clock.
Okay.
But if you get a 6, you will finish your clock and complete the intrigue.
Okay. So I'm gonna roll sway. So that's 2d6.
Yep, and I think sway makes sense here because you're fighting an uphill battle.
And good God, I need this to go very well.
I'm just trying to send some of my 6s towards you.
Because I am going to push myself.
Okay. It looks like you have an ability that helps you get more out of a push. Tell us what that is.
I have a special ability called A Good Name. When you push yourself in social engagements while consorting or swaying, you gain both +1 effect and +1d instead of one or the other.
Okay, so you will get +1d and +1 result level. So even on a 1 to 3, you will fill 2 ticks on your intrigue.
So what I'm hoping for is an A4.
Yes, on a 4 or higher.
4 or higher, it'll definitely close this thing out for me.
Yep.
Hey, right. Sway. So, risky position.
Yep, and then let's call this great effect because we have that improved effect result.
Okay, and 1 bonus die from the push.
Yep. All right, everyone send Zelfa good energy. Okay, there's a 5.
Okay.
4, 5 is what you needed.
Yes.
So on a 4 or 5, you get 2 ticks. Because of your special ability, you get an increased result level. And so I am going to fill this clock 1, 2, 3, and you complete your intrigue. So I think what this looks like fictionally is you go in because you've already kind of convinced a magistrate to like be the person that you're working with to go up against Aquili, right? That was one of your earlier roles. And so my pitch for this is that this last sequence is going to court, right? You go to your magistrate, they file all of the paperwork, and then we cut to a courtroom. And I think this is like a fairly closed courtroom where you've got a city judge, and we have Aquili and the bank's or Aquili's barrister, and then it's Zelfa and the lawyer you're working with. Do you have that lawyer's name on hand? I should have it in my notes, but I have a lot of notes.
I also have a lot of notes.
Clearly it's Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney.
Is that Thalius Orn?
So, yes. But also, my fellow one of the other representatives that I have in that interaction is Babette,
right?
Who is essentially my expert banking witness,
right?
In this context, and essentially because it's presented essentially as a class action lawsuit, including all of the Alta homeowners and renters who have been affected. The grandmother of the person who initially gave me the job in the first place is the one in-court representative for that entire class that is present in the courtroom with me.
Right, and so we're getting kind of the individuals that we've seen over the course of this plot arc, right? Where how Zelfa learned about what was going on, and then she dug and she went to people that she knows, and Babette connected you to the magistrate, and you talked to the magistrate, and you worked on you talked through the staff documentation clause where you can use an anonymous name, a nom de guerre or nom de plume, but as if the documentation still meets snuff, if it's still kind of deployed and sourced and attributed in the right way, it will be counted and considered. So when this case goes out, the plaintiff's representation will be credited to Velias Wren, which is an anonymous name for magistrates, like a known pen name. And so that protects Thalias Orn a bit from some of that blowback, but also means that he is not going to get the acclaim for this. So this is really about doing the right thing rather than about making a name for themselves. And so that's the context that we have. And they go in and we bring the witnesses, and Achilles' barrister is very much a like old Valloward family, lots of connections, clearly has worked with this judge before. Does anybody have a name for this judge, who I imagine to be like probably very established toward the end of their career?
Highbrow.
Highbrow?
What is the Valloward equivalent of Rodney Kardashian?
I'm taking highbrow and the HIGHBROW, and I'm turning it into HAIBRAU, highbrow.
Yeah, highbrow. Yeah, brow.
Yeah.
I love it.
Let's see. How about Nathanius Highbrow? This is the judge. Yeah. And so Achilles' magistrate barrister has a relationship with Highbrow, but Highbrow is unimpressed. And Highbrow attends really closely to the evidence and focuses a lot on physical evidence. And it's a pretty taxing process because Highbrow goes through everything with a really fine-tooth comb, because this is so much about the paperwork. And the human testimony puts context to this, but really where Zelpha's victory is found is that she got the right documentation, and that you followed all of the processes, and you found the right judge who didn't take the bribe. Because we get the montage of this case, and we get after hours in like private chambers with some bourbon. Achilles' barrister is there and has a conversation with Highbrow, and Highbrow is just stone-faced the whole time. And the magistrate talks and talks and talks, and we see a fencing match, but instead of blades, we have favors and bribes and dissembling and kind of stern looks. And the barrister comes at Highbrow in several different ways, talks about an invitation to a lovely villa on another island in the archipelago to visit after the stormy season is done. They talk about a letter of recommendation for Highbrow's grandniece to go back to Javeli, to one of the most acclaimed academies. And Highbrow does not give a shit about any of this, unlike some of our current Supreme Court justices. And so what we see is that in Valloward, a city with a great number of problems and obvious challenges with corruption, the reason you win is you did all of the paperwork, and for this person, in this case, this judge does not waffle to corruption. And honestly, because we're the audience, the kind of behind the scenes reason we get is that Highbrow just does not like that guy. And that's kind of the more important thing. But it never would have worked if Zelpha had not put in all of that work, had not put herself physically into danger, had not tapped all of those different community connections, and had not taken this risk along with the magistrate taking a risk. So it's this long list of people sticking their neck out and getting lucky enough to get the right judge. And only then, against all of those circumstances, is justice able to prevail. But today it does.
Yeah. I imagine like the closing scene of that interaction is when Highbrow gives his final verdict. There is this long period of silence in the courtroom, mostly because everybody present is like, wait, did a judge in Valloward do the right thing? That's what we heard. And it's only like after like people have like murmured a bit and tried to figure out whether that's what happened, that's when everybody finally celebrates. And like the young man whose name is not in my notes, and I'm very frustrated by this thing, who told me that his elder was being evicted in the first place, comes back to me and gives me a very big hug. And I break from his embrace and immediately look down at him and say, I would like a drink, and I would like to go to sleep.
So
I just kind of lift my head and keep walking out of the courtroom while everybody is still celebrating.
So some names I have from the early downtime is Dinor, who is the grandson of Iara.
Mm-hmm. Right, yes. Dinor is who I was thinking of.
Yeah. Okay, great. I'm glad we could bring that name back, since it's good to name people, since all these people matter.
Yeah. So Dinor is very excited, and I am just very tired.
Yep. All right. As a prize for completing a intrigue, and because I'm a fan of the players, I'm going to say, Brandon, I will give you a free indulge for completing this.
Oh my God! Please! Oh
All
my
right.
God!
But it's not going to be an overindulge, because that would be shitty.
Mm-hmm. And narratively, I'm gonna say this is me, putting Iara stuff back into her house. As I roll body, which I still have no dots in, full stop.
You're going to get at least one more back, right?
Yes, at least the one. Enough to push once in one point in the future. Yeah, I'm just gonna make this basic then, I guess.
Hey, okay. So on a 4 and a 3, you're going to get 3 stress back.
Okay.
So
This is good.
You're 1 better off than you were before you did that push.
Yes. Whew.
Okay.
That was nice.
And so, does anybody have any final scenes they want to do? If not, I think we can kind of exit on that kind of the end of this montage with Zelfa and the Dialta. But then the post-credit scene that I'm gonna give us is it's Valeria and Javeli and Fengvir Greymist, the Princept of Greymist, the first Princept of Valloward. So a full entourage walking up to the manor of Vorster, and they're received, like this entourage is received by Suin and Morgaine and all of you. And so the doors open, and Fengvir, who's this older man, kind of similar complexion to Javeli, but worn, has the build of a man who has fought many fights in every different way that you can have a fight, who kind of steps up to being even with Suin, the Princept of Vorster. And Fengvir says, I believe you have one of my people. Your hospitality is no longer needed. I will take him back now. And we'll end there.
Okay, I didn't expect that button to be pushed quite so quickly, but then again, I shouldn't have said so aloud.
No.
Back.
So that is going to be that. So we'll have some like free play deal with Greymist stuff to do alongside the Hibiscus tournament, depending on what space and time we can make for all of that. It's going to be a big showcase for Karevis, and I want to make sure to do that, but to give everybody some things to do. This will probably be a more complicated errand coming up, so this maybe we'll want to do a little bit of scheming in the Discord, but I look forward to that. But first, we'll wrap up for tonight, and I want to say thank you to all of our players, Rhiannon, Brandon, and Greg, and thank you again to Darcie for joining us as a guest star with Marcelo. Very happy and grateful to have you. I want to say thank you to all the mods here at twitch.tv/ArvinElleron for keeping the chat moving nicely and safe, and throwing some commands in to assist us and keeping track of everything there. Thank you again to the Drakes for their promotional material support in doing this series. You can, if you're watching this kind of in VODs on Twitch or on YouTube, you can watch the whole series. We did a game of Ex Novo, a world-building game by Sharkbomb Games, to make this island and establish some of the setting stuff. And then we did the thing you do in story games, where we build the rest of the story and the world in play, with these players and with other players previously, Primi Mohammed and Marie Bilodeau, who have each made their own contributions. And so it's really fun to have this world that is growing and becoming more and more alive through all these contributions from lovely colleagues, including the folks that are joining me here today. We're very delighted to have this series be a selection for the New Jersey Webfest and for the Minnesota Webfest. We are hoping for more good news in the next couple of months from one more festival that we submitted to, and for maybe getting some award nominations from one or another of those festivals, which is a thing that can happen. So keep your fingers crossed for us. You'll want to pay attention to patreon.com/speculate, where you can become a subscriber and a supporter and get extra videos, including some of my GM prep and other cool things about Valloward that we've done over the course of the last year, whether that is a recap that I did or other GM prep. And we also have a bunch of other bonus episodes there. So we've got some wonderful supporters there. We've had some people join in the last month, and so thank you so much to those. I know that finances are tricky right now for a lot of people because capitalism is very much a lot right now. And so for the folks that are able to make some room in your budget, we're really grateful. If you're not able to do that right now, spreading the word about the show is a great way of showing your support, and we're really grateful for that. Find people in your life that like Three Musketeers, that like Leverage, that like kind of Renaissance fantasy, or like stuff with really deep world building, or who are fans of any of these authors. Let them know that Valloward exists, and point them toward youtube.com/ArvinElleron, where you can find the Valloward playlist as a subsection of Speculate, or you can go to speculatesf.com. That's all of my outro stuff. So now I'm going to make a quick list for other folks to do the outros, starting with Darcie.
Oh, heyo. Yeah, thank you so much. You can catch me on Instagram at Dr. Little Badger, or here on Twitch, where I actually did a stream before this one, where I do gaming and also co-working writing sprints and talk about author stuff. So yeah, that's me, Author Little Badger. And once again, I was just so happy to be part of this game. It's always a lot of fun, and I always kind of get swept away by the storytelling aspect of it, and then when it's my turn to contribute, I'm almost like, whoa, cool, I'm part of this. This is the best choose your own adventure. All right, thank you.
Okay, me. So I've been Rhiannon Held. So on the gaming side, I've been doing stuff with Dungeon Scrawlers on their channel, D&D also with authors. And Wednesdays we're doing a side adventure with our original characters, the Westgate Irregulars. So if you heard about those characters, come back for the side adventure. It's cool. And then on the author side, right now Smashwords is having a sale through the end of the month of July. So if you want EPUBs, everything is 50% off, and if it was too low a price, it's now free. So that's both my urban fantasy under Rhiannon Held and my space opera under RZ Held. if you were at all sort of like, well, I don't know if I want to try it, it's a really great price right now. So take a look.
Excellent. Brandon.
Hello, everyone. It has been me, Brandon O'Brien. I am a poet, writer, and game designer from Trinidad and Tobago. You can find me almost everywhere on social media at The Rising Tides. There is so much social media right now, so it's actually becoming very overwhelming to use any of it, but I am in all of the places, even the places that suck. You can more easily find me at brandonO'Brien.xyz. That's probably where I'm gonna do most of my talking now. That is both my website and where you get to sign up for my newsletter, where I talk about writing, have very intense feelings about how we make society better for everybody, and sometimes take screenshots of whatever game I'm playing on my phone. So that's a very good place to just hang out sometimes. I am the author of the poetry book Can You Sign My Tentacle, which you can get wherever you get your poetry. I also design my own TTRPGs at therisingtides.itch.io, and I'm also doing a lot of other things in other TTRPG spaces as well, including working on the Grey Shade RPG alongside Gregory A. Wilson, and I'm also contributing an essay to the stretch goal Zine by Moonlight that will be attached to the Girl by Moonlight Kickstarter campaign. So when that pledge manager is open, I don't think it's open yet, but when it is, if you're into everything that happened in Fractal Spire, you can not only buy the RPG, but you can attach some of the stretch goal stuff in it, which will come with an essay from me, so you can hear me have all of the feelings about the things that make Sailor Moon cool and also make Kamen Rider cool. So I definitely recommend that essay. That essay is... I'm so excited about that essay that it was already done before they expected me to actually submit it. So I just want people to read it whenever it actually comes out. So yeah, I have a lot of feelings about that. So yeah, that's me, I think. Also Gen Con. Also I'll be at Gen Con. If you're going to be at Gen Con, I'll also be at Gen Con. And if you're not going to be at Gen Con, you should change your mind about that.
Oh wait, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for interrupting. I forgot to. If we're doing conventions, I'm gonna be at San Diego Comic-Con this upcoming week as a special guest. So please,
Nice.
if anyone's there and sees me, please say hi. All right, thank you. Sorry, bye.
Darcie, do you have are you doing panels or specific signings,
Yes.
or should we look
so
for?
I'm going to be doing panels throughout Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, starting with it's like Welcome to Fantasy at 10 a.m. Thursday. I'm doing the panel What's the Best Superpower? I'm doing the panel Out in Comics. It's the 36th year of Prison Comics hosting that, and also a spotlight panel on me, Darcie Little Badger. But I'm going to be talking with Kinsale Drake of the Indian Girls Book Club about pretty much everything. And then they put me up for like 3 different signings, so I know that I'm not going to be signing books the whole time. So I think there's going to be a lot of time to chat. Anyway, thank you. Yeah, I completely forgot I'm doing that next week. And I don't really have much social media in terms of like announcing things. So I'll see you all there.
Okay. So yeah. So and have fun out at SDCC. So my name's Greg Wilson. On this channel, better known as Arvanelleron. And I have had, as always, a great time playing with these fine folks. I really enjoyed this campaign. Also, kudos to Mike for doing a wonderful job again as dancing master. I am here at ReaderCon for another couple of days up here in Quincy, Massachusetts. So if you are in the area, I recommend you stop by. The panels here are really good. I've got 2 panels tomorrow on I think one of them is on the big edit, and then I have a reading, and then on Sunday I have a panel on urban spaces and about writing city spaces in fiction, which is something that's been on my mind because because of these books that I've had that I'm in the midst of writing a trilogy about, including the aforementioned Grey Shade, which is now an IBPA Silver Medal Award winning book. And Brandon is, as we said, designing the TTRPG for that, which is going to be awesome. And then this, which I'm super excited about, this is the sequel and is coming out in 2 weeks, is going to be officially out. And I will be doing a release event probably on this channel, but also in person at Black Rock Books in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is a community bookstore. I'm super excited about this. It's a brand new bookstore, and this is a brand new book, so it's a match made in heaven, and I'm excited for this. That's going to be Saturday, July 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern if you were in the New England area. So that'll be awesome. And I am one of the coordinators for programming at Gen Con Symposium, so I will also be there. And yes, please say hi and all that kind of stuff. And I'm very excited about bringing all of that as I'm responding to something. So yeah, so definitely check that out, and you can check that out on my channel by typing in !Grayshade, and you will get details about how to pre-order all of that, and check out Tren Sparks' audiobook of Grayshade, which is now out and available everywhere too. Otherwise, I will see you folks here tomorrow on this channel to finish up our D&D with viewers Into the Unknown that I've been doing. Darcie was talking about Choose Your Own Adventure. It's this is a very elaborate version of that, but all with Dungeons and Dragons type stuff. So I will be doing that in the evening after my panel stuff is done. So we will be doing that together as a chat and wrapping up the Into the Unknown game. So please join me tomorrow for that. Otherwise, please support the Speculate Patreon. Get the behind the scenes stuff with !Speculate. And we will see you folks back here for the next Valloward and onward. And I think that's it. So bye all. Good to see everybody.
Bye all. Take care.